Madam President, you have a quorum.
Thank you for that. Can we have a report for closed session, please? Madam Vice Chair.
Don't actually have anything to read out. We had no decisions or votes that were taken in closed session, so there's no reportable information.
We did have one appointment.
We had one appointment.
We have,
right?
oh, we do, okay, I was awake. Can I get, do we have a
The
readout?
readout?
So. So we're experiencing a communication gap?
Paper difficulty, not technical difficulty.
Paper difficulty?
Paper.
I'll just read it off the agenda then, or is it, I need the name and the contract amount.
I seen it earlier.
Oh, I need to read out the name and the contract amount and the dates and all that stuff, so that's why I need it.
Oh, it's over there.
Oh, here it is, Linda got it. Here it is, folks. At tonight's closed session, the board voted to ratify the appointment of the following public employee contracts, which are subject to contractual agreement by the chancellor. The recommendation to appoint Gary Albury as Director of Student Activities and Campus Life, Laney College, effective November 15th, 2017 through June 30th, 2019, at $113,322 annually. It was unanimous, 7 ayes. If this individual is present, please stand so that we can welcome you into your new position. All right, well, congratulations. Madam President, that concludes the closed session readout for tonight.
Thank you for that. We will now move to item 3.4, approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion?
Motion there.
Madam President,
Do you have the moved by trustee Riley and second by trustee Withrow? Trustee Gonzalez-Wynn?
so I understand that there are some items that may be removed from the agenda. I'm not sure which of those have already been removed, but I'd like to make
We'll
sure.
go ahead and we'll read those out. Trustee Gonzalez-Wynn, for the record.
Thank you.
Assistant to the Chancellor is going to need a little bit of feedback today because we're not being recorded. Thank you. So we'll read.
All right, so I do have a list of the things that are going to be pulled from the agenda. Okay, so we're going to need a motion, so I'm going to read these, and then, Madam President, once I read them and everybody has a look at them, we could see whether we need to add anything to the list. So the following items have been requested to be pulled from the agenda. Agenda item 5.2, consider approval of final reading on proposed board policies, has been removed from the agenda, or will be removed from the agenda pending vote, or pending motion and vote. Agenda item 5.5, consider approval of first reading of proposed board policies, to be removed from the agenda. Agenda item 5.1, consider approval of the board meeting calendar for 2018. Agenda item 5.3, consider, oh, okay, it's that 5.1 would be moved to action. Agenda item 5.3, consider approval of out-of-state travel pursuant to Board Policy 7400, that would be action. Agenda item 7.5, consider approval of the first quarter CCFS-311 quarterly report for fiscal year 2017-2018, action. Move to action or pending motion and vote. Agenda item 7.6, consider approval of budget transfer report covering the period from September 21st, 2017 through October 25th, 2017. That would, the recommendation or the suggestion is to move that to the action calendar. Agenda 8.1, consider approval of short-term assignments to be moved to the action calendar. Agenda item 8.2, consider approval of request from Stephen Michael Gersel for the action calendar. Agenda item 9.4, consider approval to enter into agreement with district-wide security guard and patrol services for ABC Security Service, Inc. for the action calendar. Agenda item 10.1, consider award of a request for proposal number 17/18-03 district-wide PeopleSoft modernization project to Deloitte Consulting LLP for the action calendar. Agenda item number 11.1, consider approval of resolution number 17/18-20 for a construction agreement with Century Carpet, Inc. for the Laney College stairs flooring upgrades for the action calendar. Agenda item 11.3, declaration of emergency for Merritt College landscaping and utility work for the action calendar. So, if anyone has anything to add to that before we make the motion?
Trustee Gonzalez Nguyen?
To clarify, item 5.2 and 5.5 were removed from the agenda entirely.
Yes, that's to be, so the items to be removed from the agenda entirely would be 5.2, 5.5, yes, 5.2 and 5.5.
Okay. In addition, I would like to request that item 7.2 be moved to action. 9.6, so 7.2, excuse me, was an appointment to the Oversight Committee. It was 2 individuals to the Oversight Committee. 9.6 is a budget transfer for the Best Center. I'd like to be moved to action, please. 9.7 is a budget transfer for the College of Alameda. I think that might be the Fab Lab. So I understand it. 10.2. And then 11.2, please. This is bylaw changes for the Oversight Committee. And then 11.4, this is an independent contractor item.
All right, so I'm going to read those out again, Nikki.
Yes.
I'm gonna read and I believe Trustee Weinstein had her hand.
Trustee Weinstein?
Yeah, I was just going to also say 7.2, which I think is.
7.2 was just called, yes.
Okay, and 11.2, is that being pulled?
You can say that.
11 to, we're moving it to action. Oh, I'm sorry, can you repeat what you're?
The
Which one?
Chancellor would like to remove 11.2 from
11.2
the
is being
agenda
removed.
entirely.
Okay.
And that is a bylaw change for the Oversight Committee. And that's a parcel and bond oversight committee for members of the public.
All right, so I'm going to read the ones that were added. So we have to be removed from the agenda 11.2, which is consider approval of resolution 17/18-21 to amend and restate the Citizens Oversight Committee bylaws. And then the items to be moved to the action calendar include, in addition to the ones that I read earlier, which I will repeat if anyone has questions, item 7.2, which is consider approval to appoint new members to serve on the Citizens Oversight Committee. Item number 9.6, consider approval of a budget transfer for the Laney College Best Center in the amount of $150,000. Item number 9.7, consider approval of a budget transfer of unallocated funds to a new project fund for College of Alameda Measure A funds in the amount of $130,000. And then item number 11.4, consider approval of resolution 17 2025/18-04 for a contract award to Future Power Corporation DBA Energy Conservation Options to complete the Laney College Forum interior LED lighting retrofit. So, those are the items. The first three items are for removal from the agenda, and the remaining items are for moving to the action calendar. So, Madam President, do we have a motion and a second?
Motion moved by trustee Riley,
Second.
second by trustee Withrow. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Board Clerk, when we get to those items, will you be able to call them back as we go through them, each one? Okay, thank you. Have they been posted for the public as well? So we will move, let's see, we had, so y'all have, we had an approval for the agenda, there was a second. So the approval for the amended agenda is now, I believe, still second. We have a motion. Trustee Withrow, I need a second. Second from trustee Brown, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries, thank you. Approval of the minutes, 3.5. Motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
It's been approved by trustee Riley,
Second.
second by trustee Withrow, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. We will move into 3.6, Associated Student Government Reports. Where's our mic for Associate Student Government? It appears that we don't have student government reports this evening, so we will move to 3.7, Academic Senate Report.
Good evening. It is on. Very well. Good evening, Board of Trustees and Peralta community. I would like to give a brief report tonight. Just a couple of items. I understand it's going to be a fairly long meeting tonight, so I'll keep it brief as possible. Earlier this month, the district sent more faculty to the Academic Senate for California Community College's fall plenary than in my history here in the district. The theme for this session, thank you very much, Dr. Shinosky. The theme for this session was change. And change is, for all the cliches that are out there about change, it was just really relevant for our session because there is quite a bit of change brewing in the state, in the system. A couple of that I would just like to point out three that were of significance at the plenary session. The first was AB 705. As you all are no doubt familiar with AB 705, I would like just to share some of the work that's been done in the district. Math and English faculty specifically throughout the district have done, as a part of the Basic Skills Transformation Grant the college has received in the past, it has helped to the district prepare for the mandates of 705. As all of you are also aware, the mandates kick in the 1st of January. So it's a really fast turnaround, but fortunately, the work that our faculty and Office of Instruction, specifically our academic deans, have helped to do over the last few years has prepared us for this, much more so than many districts in the state. There has been much curriculum redesign already on top of incredible work redesigning student assessment and placement. Additionally, faculty have done a great deal of personal and departmental reflection required to reorient ourselves to student capacity and the effect of our curriculum and pedagogy on our students' achievement. The faculty and the academic dean's work and leadership at the colleges over the past 2 years specifically has paved the way for a much less stressful implementation of the mandates, which, as I mentioned before, are effective the beginning of the new year. Another big topic of discussion at the plenary session was guided pathways. I will share with you that in December, along with Vice Chancellor of Academic Affairs, Dr. Brown, I will be providing a report on the status of guided pathways in the district. And even though Dr. Brown and I will be giving that presentation, it has been the considerable workload of our offices of instruction and our faculty at the colleges specifically who have positioned us for the self-assessment that is required for the colleges to apply for funding for additional resources for guided pathways. The other big topic of discussion at the plenary session was in response a bit to the vision that the Board of Trustees, the Board of Governors, adopted. But it wasn't so much the vision in itself, but it was the lack of collegial consultation from our state office of the State Chancellor's office. And so I just wanted to share that with you because over the next couple of months, most likely, more will be coming from the Academic Senate for the California Community Colleges, as well as our District Academic Senate in response to an adherence to respecting the collegial consultation. And finally, I would just like to add that there has been a slow path to budget transparency in the district. And the fact that we're in mid-November without an approved planning and budgeting calendar, and the relative silence of, unfortunately, our Board of Trustees in providing oversight and ensuring, or more frankly, demanding that such things are coming along are concerning and frustrating. It is incredibly difficult for the Academic Senate, for our Classified Senate, and for any of our administrators to conduct meaningful, deliberate planning and budgeting without these tools in hand, and to suggest that we are moving towards transparency without these things is unfortunate, and it doesn't quite get us to where we have claimed that we are pushing ourselves to be. And so it is my communication to our Board of Trustees that we need your oversight. We need your influence. You are the stewards of our district. And without your oversight, without your demanding that these tools that we work with, without your demanding that they are in place, we are forever in this cycle of intention without necessarily the action. And so I just really implore, beg, and frankly, as a citizen in this area, as someone that you all represent, not necessarily as a District Academic Senate President, I absolutely just must request, if not demand, that work is shouldered by our board going forward. Thank you.
Thank you for that. We will move to 3.8, Classified Senate. I have a hard time finding people. Thank you for that. We are now on 3.9, Chancellor's Report. Chancellor?
Is it on? Okay. Tonight, I would like to ask President Tim Karras from College of Alameda to share with the board a fine donation that we received for the College of Alameda.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to highlight a donation that recently the College of Alameda has received. October 23rd was a pretty great day for myself, probably one of the few and many I'll have here in Peralta, that I got an email and a text early on the 23rd of October on a Monday saying a donor was ready and willing to fly an airplane down to Oakland International Airport to deliver it to our aviation program. So I had the greatest excuse ever to leave the Guided Pathways statewide workshop, which was in Oakland, saying I have to excuse myself for like 2 hours to go get an airplane. So I immediately got in my car. We assembled our team. We got Jeff Heyman and the PIO office from the district all on board to greet an airplane that flew in from Nevada to Oakland International, and it taxied over to the gate that is between us and Oakland International Airport, and we had a nice little dance between TSA and other officials about really high-tech locks. So I know much more about locking mechanisms to allow airplanes back and forth. And they opened the gate, and the airplane came to us, and we accepted it. This donor is a very humble man. He doesn't want his name publicly distributed. The airplane in value is about $450,000. It's operational, clearly, since he flew it here. Has pontoons, which is great, and we're gonna get some skis for it too. So I'm like, oh my God, we have so many opportunities now in Peralta. And so it's a really monumental donation for our program. So it's actually the second airplane this donor has given our program over the last 2 years. I really appreciate the board in October 10th accepting the donation so he can fly it to us on the 23rd. And it's really monumental and transforms the aviation program that's been growing over the last couple of years. And really the donation is the yeoman's work of the aviation folks. So Esther Chen, who's the site supervisor for aviation, the department chair, Hoey Ko, and the dean, Eva Jennings, they put it all together. You know, I had the blessing to just be able to run from the Guided Pathways workshop and meet a person and his dog that flew with him, which was interesting, a person and a dog getting out of an airplane and greeting them and shaking their hand. So it was wonderful, and we're hoping to have more relations with this donor. He's very appreciative of Peralta and our program, and it also shows how our program is universally known, that someone in Nevada who doesn't even live in our state has a connection with us, who doesn't live in our area, but wants to donate significant amounts of equipment and aircraft to us to make this successful. So it was a wonderful, wonderful day. In my board report, there's one photo of the plane, and the donor's in the photo. I think he's turned away a little bit since he is shy. But it was really wonderful, and thank you very much for accepting the donation and making the program as strong as it is.
Congratulations.
As President Karras mentioned, Esther Chang, who is an instructional lab assistant at the aviation program, was very instrumental in making sure that we get this donation. So I want to make sure that we give special thanks to her for that. And she has a great way of getting donations, so we're expecting some others to come forward as well. Wanted to share with our public that there is a resolution recognizing the pruning club at Merritt College. They have been in existence for a little while, and I will be delivering a special resolution to them at one of their events that's coming up. I wonder if Marlene Hurd is here for Tobacco Initiative presentation. I don't see her. That concludes my my report, Madam President.
Thank you so much, Chancellor. We will move to, well, I just want to give another shout out to President Karras for receiving this airplane. So congratulations. Yeah, it's great. We will move to 3.10, Board of Trustee report. We'll begin to my far left, Trustee Weinstein.
Let's see. I had good opportunities to be able to speak with community groups about the A's situation and individual faculty members as well, and I appreciate that. Also had a chance to speak with some of the veterans from our different programs and who were there before and have graduated, and I appreciate that as well. So that's my report for tonight.
Thank you. Trustee Moore?
Good evening. Tonight I wanted to raise awareness about student workers. Some student workers are not paid for the mandatory training. I myself have experienced 40 hours of unpaid mandatory training. There are other students who are not paid for paid sick leave in a timely manner, even though this Oakland City policy at least has been passed for like 2.5 years, but the mechanisms are in place to get students paid in a timely manner. But again, that's less of an issue than unpaid mandatory training. So I wanted to ask, can students expect to get paid for mandatory training, or do they need to take the advice of the labor commissioner and take this to civil court? So if I could get a report back next meeting about that, an update about some kind of timeline, whether or not these students will get paid and how to make that happen. I've also met with community members regarding the A's. Some faculty and staff also, and students, of course. I have heard from faculty and staff some hesitation to be transparent with their opinions because of fear of retaliation. Obviously, I'm not going to name names because I want to respect their wishes. What else? I've noticed a lot of notifications over the FAS emailing list that go between faculty and staff that are pertaining to students. A lot of them start with, hey, if you know a student who this might interest, please let them know. But I feel like a vast minority of those opportunities actually get communicated to students. So we need to have a mechanism in place so that the FAS list is not a go-between for information and students, because obviously students do not have access to the FAS email list. I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg as far as communicating amongst students. We don't really have a mechanism in place across campuses. You know, I'd like to be informed of an event at Merritt College, even though I'm only enrolled at College of Alameda and Laney, because I can still participate, and maybe this will benefit me. Maybe it will encourage me to take a course at a school that I haven't attended yet. And then physically on campus, we need a more organized way to communicate with students, for students to communicate with each other. Our bulletin board system needs improvement. It's very, a basic thing. And on the topic of communication, I'd still like some business cards, because every day I have the opportunity to network with people, but I'm unable to give them a formal business card, and it's definitely hampering my ability to perform my duties. So thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Handy?
Hi. Hi, everyone. It's actually, since our last meeting, I've had a lot of opportunities to visit or participate in events with our students. So I was able to attend the Merritt College Black Panther celebration as a panel member at the invitation of one of the students. And it's always good to be on the panel side, but also to hear what the audience has to say and to actually get an opportunity to share history with the students. And I always enjoy being invited to attend these events. I also had the opportunity to spend a day with the College of Alameda ADAM program, where we attended 2 different studios of students or previous students or designers in the city to learn about the merchandising part of it, what it is to start a business, One of them had a business that included some things that I was very interested in. Many of you may not know I actually graduated from the Laney College ADAM program. Initially, I always thought I was going to be a fashion designer. So it was great to spend the day with Derek and all of our students, and and the students were amazing. They just were really talented, amazing, and asked a lot of questions. We had an opportunity to attend the Ultimate Women's Power Luncheon with Nancy Pelosi and Barbara Lee and other political leaders in San Francisco. Civic Pride Gala, again, to honor the work that's done by Carol Tolbert and her husband to support students in our area. Black elected officials meeting to talk about how we can support the city of Oakland and be more community-minded. And the Oakland Museum's president reception, which was really great to see our new dear president of Laney College being supported by the community. And that all ended with the Merritt College ASMC meeting, where, again, I get to spend time with students that I hadn't seen many since September, and to just talk about how their interest in how they can work together without discord, and how they can have the support that they need and the training that they need so that they can have very functional meetings that are not frustrating for all of them. So I really enjoyed their willingness, one, to invite me to participate, but also to listen to how meetings are run, how we respect each other, how we work together, and that we shouldn't have to be doing things individually and then bringing it to the group, where many students I find, because of their busy schedules or whatever, not able to communicate things, well, if I want this done, I've got to do this. But in reality, if we can help our students to learn how to work collaboratively as a group, I think we will have less frustration and more deliverables from the different student groups, and then more information to pass down to the next group. So all in all, it was a busy month, but I thank everyone for all the invitations to attend and be there with you.
Thank you. Trustee Brown.
Well, since our last meeting, I had the opportunity to participate in the Guided Pathways focus group with Trustee Bonilla, and we were able to attend with other members of the Peralta community that were teaching students with respect to career technical education, and also our sector navigator that is connecting our students with jobs and working with the academic programming to integrate the learning for the particular industry. Also, I attended the Black elected officials meeting, which was aimed at having a nexus between the various elected officials and how that they could work together, or we could work together to support the issues of jobs, affordable housing, education, some of the mainstays that are a struggle in the expensive environment and very demanding environment that we're existing in now. And also, as some people may know, Compton Community College has received its accreditation, had its accreditation returned, so I was able to work with our trustees throughout the state to honor one of the trustees who's been working very tirelessly since before Compton lost its accreditation through the period of receivership and for the return of accreditation. And we'll be working with the Legislative Black Caucus to recognize her efforts and to let the Compton community know that they have their institution back under local control. And we'll be driving down there. I'll be picking up a couple of trustees on the way, and having a group of us go down to support the Compton Community College Board. And that'll be next week after the California Community College League meeting, which is later on this week.
Thank you. Trustee Withrow.
Pass.
Trustee Gonzalez-Wynn.
Thank you. I had the opportunity this past week to attend the fall forum of the APA Democratic Caucus of Alameda County. It was actually a film by Jeff Adachi called America Needs a Racial Facial. It was a short film. It's available. You can see it publicly. But then a panel discussion on the various ways that racism specifically affects members of the Asian American Pacific Islander community. It was a really useful forum and a reminder that racism isn't just a black and white issue. It's a really multifaceted, complicated thing that entangles everybody in ways that kind of destroys all of our lives. So I'm thankful to the APA caucus for putting that on. I also, like probably all of my trustees, have been meeting with members of the community on the A's issue, particularly folks from the Laney community who are deeply concerned about our capacity as a district to even think about this project in a way that is productive, given the challenges that we face as a district. I have to say that almost uniformly, I'm hearing deep concern about this. So I welcome people to approach me and obviously other members of our elected board. And if you're feeling intimidated by that, we're pretty nice people. And I think all of us are approaching this with very keen attention to the needs of our community. So thank you.
Thank you. Student Trustee Hollis.
Thank you. Just real quick, I have a couple of things. There are 27 students coming out of Peralta District who are going to the Student Senate for California Community College's General Assembly this fall, 2017, from November 17th through the 19th. Just so y'all know, there are 2 resolutions that came out of Peralta District. One is the Foundation's resolution written by Aisha Jordan, which addresses resources for informally incarcerated and systems impacted students, and active listening resolution written by Aisha Jordan and myself, which addresses the student grievance process and microaggressive behaviors from administration, faculty, and staff towards students. Other than that, we do have a tentative date set for the Peralta Student Council, which is going to be held on November 29th on a Wednesday. Times to be determined, and that is all from me. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Trustee Riley. Okay. So I'd like to share just a couple of updates, and thank you everyone for your reports. I did, as Trustee Brown mentioned, attend or was part of the Guided Pathways Focus Group, which was interesting, and I'm definitely looking forward to learning a little bit more, especially since the Academic Senate presentation this morning raised some really good questions. So thank you for that, and looking forward to learning more about a more collaborative process on engagement towards developing guided pathways. One of the other things that is really sometimes not spoken about are what's happening in our community that's either impactful or can be impactful to our students here at Peralta. And the Port of Oakland last week, the Port of Oakland commissioners met and adopted an interesting public-private partnership called a jobs policy related to their warehousing development. And the warehousing is a huge warehousing and logistics complex called Seaport Logistics Complex that they adopted a cooperation agreement. The cooperation agreement is a policy that is driven by community partnerships and community coalitions to ensure that there are community asks in this public-private partnership development. And what they won is a local hire, a 50% local hire for Oakland, not only Oakland residents, they're called local impact area, which is the city of Oakland, Berkeley, and Alameda. That 50% of the local hire must be representative of those three cities. The other piece in that cooperation agreement is a ban the box policy that is one of the strongest ban the box policies in the country. And what this does is It disallows employers from discriminating against those who have had some sort of interaction with the court system, and bars those employers for, or bans those employers for asking detailed questions prior to consideration for hire. This is a significant win for our community. And the third is a limit on the number of part-time hours that workers in this industry can work. And so it's limiting no more than 140 hours of part-time work, and really the policy is encouraging and supporting a temp to perm. And why is this important for Peralta? Well, Peralta has this really interesting program over at the College of Alameda called Atlas Program. And the Atlas Program is aligned with their warehousing logistics courses, certifications that will directly feed into that industry. So really important, very, very good win for all of us here in this region. So just wanted to share that piece with you before we move on to public communications.
So we have speaker cards from our students. And we also have speaker cards from the general public. I'll call the students' names first in accordance with our board policy or our public communication policy. So we have Lauren Jelks, Lisbeth Sanchez, Charlie Rigel, and these are general comments on for the agenda.
Okay. Okay, hi. My name is Lauren Jelks. I'm a second-year student at Laney Community College. First, I just want to say thank you for making sure that the students get to speak first today. I know I really appreciate it. Yeah. I have 2 essays due on Thursday that I've barely started, so I really do appreciate it. So today I wanted to talk about the emotional energy and work that has gone into the last 2 months of organizing by the students, faculty, and community members you've seen opposing the proposed stadium. For context, in roughly the last 8 weeks since the A's have announced their preference for building at the Laney site, I personally have spent over 36 hours organizing, and that's just a rough estimate. This involves coalition meetings, events such as this, having important discussions with fellow students, and strategizing with like-minded individuals. And obviously, I'm just one person. Between all the people involved, there are hundreds of hours of emotional energy and labor going into protecting our community. And this is unpaid labor that we have to balance with work, school, teaching, spending time with family, etc. Deciding to wait and hear all the possible options for the A Stadium may seem neutral, but based on the emotional energy and hundreds of hours of work that have gone to organize against the stadium, one can see that this possible outcome is already negatively affecting our school community. Instead of making plans, lesson plans, teachers are forced to discuss this event with students and the union and organize accordingly. Students who should be working on midterms, such as myself, are wondering if their campus will be here in 5 years. Personally, I wake up every day with the cloud of this potential deal hanging over me as I walk through campus. Now you all have the ability to end that so that we can get back to what's important on campus, such as addressing student homelessness, food insecurity, updated and challenging curriculum, and so much more. Laney and Peralta deserve 150% of your time, and the A Stadium has already detracted from such. Please consider putting this behind you so that we can move on with a vision for Peralta Community College District. Thank you.
Lisbeth Sanchez? Lisbeth? Charlie Rigel?
Good evening, board members. Thank you for the opportunity to address you. My name is Charlie Rigel. I live in West Oakland. I've been in California my entire adult life, and I got an AA degree from San Jose City College in 1981. So I'm a real believer in the community college, and I appreciate the opportunity that I have to take a class at Laney now. But I came to talk tonight about the possibility of a new ballpark. And while I think it's a shame that we're losing the Warriors and I have mixed feelings about the Raiders. I can go either way on that. But I would say this, I would oppose, and I would urge anyone to oppose any project that requires public tax dollars the way the Raiders did. The public shouldn't be paying for building stadiums, a little infrastructure I can see, and the public definitely should not guarantee sellout performances by inferior teams. So that precedent can't be repeated. But in respect to Laney, I would say this. The downtown already has a lot going on. Traffic is terrible here. The community around Laney College would be severely disrupted for the duration of the construction. And I'm in favor of keeping the A's in Oakland. Hats off to them for making any attempt. But I would argue that what should happen is that it should be built at the current site with the Coliseum and the Coliseum Arena. I don't know what's going to happen to that arena once the Warriors are gone. But nobody is really using that big stadium. So what the A's should do is build a ballpark, one of those new ballparks like they have in San Francisco, that is baseball only. There's so much more land around the Coliseum and so much more opportunity to do so many more things. We're in a housing crisis. And so frankly, I'm a little disturbed that we're building ballparks when we should be building housing. You drive around Oakland, you see people living on the street, literally, communities of tents, right? Around the Coliseum, there's a lot of potential to build, to put up, mixed levels of housing from market rate to affordable to artist, all that stuff, so that we don't have kids burning to death like they did in that ghost ship thing, right? So there's a lot more that could be done there than here. So I think, and I'm not an expert on all of this stuff, but I would say this, that what the Peralta board should do is just extricate itself and say, we're not going to do this here. You find some other place. And then let the community organize around at the Coliseum. So much more potential. And it will not be as disruptive to that area as it would be downtown. And I lived in East Oakland for many years too, and I say it needs development too. It needs support. There could be retail, there could be all kinds of stuff because there's so much land around the Coliseum. Lastly, and I'm a retiree of the union movement. I want to just address my brothers and sisters in the building trades councils. And I know that the construction unions support, almost any project, but I would say this, brothers and sisters in the trades, there's so much work, more work to be done in the Coliseum area, much more opportunity for employment for all the trades.
Thank you so much. Your time is up.
And that's probably a better deal for the unions in my view. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our student speakers are Beth Kern or Keene, Sadie Rose, Lauren Jelks again, and Ellen Murray.
Hi, my name is Beth Keene. I'm also a student, a retiree taking classes at Alameda. I'm involved in trying to stop the stadium here. I think it's a real, very, very bad, especially for Laney College, especially for students getting access to be able to get to school and then to get to work, because there's going to be traffic jams. It's going to be absolutely crazy. And I think it's going to be really hard for students that work, have kids, to be able to get here and get away in a timely manner, to the point where people aren't going to be coming to Laney, or less people will be. But anyway, I was one to speaking on, I was reviewing the agenda, looking for other things of interest. And I looked at 11.2, which has been withdrawn from the agenda, but I still want to speak on it because I spent a lot of time looking at this. If you all are not familiar with it, this is about amending the bylaws for the district's Citizen Bond Oversight Committee, okay? So this is the citizen oversight for how the bond money that we all voted, because we love this district and these colleges, the bond money that we voted to pay out of our taxes to help the district. And so I was wondering, well, why did they want to change these bylaws? And there's some honestly very troubling things that are being proposed here, and I don't know why. The first one is that whoever proposed these wants to take the name bond out of the title. So it would instead read the Citizens Oversight Committee. What does that have to do with the bond? Nothing. So I think that's very troubling. I don't understand it. The second thing, though, so I thought, well, maybe that's just a word thing. Then I looked at the end where it talks about how the process for changing the bylaws in the future once this goes through. And this is the most dangerous one. Again, this is for citizen oversight for the $390 million bond money, is that it changes any future amendments to the bylaws. Right now, it requires a 2/3 vote of the entire board of trustees. That's a pretty stiff, lift to get that, right? To just a, quote, vote of the board. Now, why would you want to do that if you weren't planning on doing some major evisceration in the future of these bylaws and of this committee's important work? So I'm glad it was pulled from the agenda, but it's still like, why, who, why, and who? Thank you.
Thank you.
Sadie Rose? Sadie Rose? Lauren Jelks? Ellen Murray? Those are all our student speakers. Naomi Schiff, I'm going to call 4 of these so people can come up and be ready to speak. Naomi Schiff, Arthur Levy, Alicia Caballero Christensen, Naomi Huddleston, and I'll call 5, James Mann.
I'm Naomi Schiff, and hello there. I'm sorry I'm invisible. I'm with the Coalition of Advocates for Lake Merritt again, and Stay the Right Way. In preparation for next month's meeting, I just wanted to express my appreciation at giving priority to student speakers. I think that's great. You may also wish to modify your speaker forms to reflect and ask folks to indicate whether they are residents of the Peralta district. Right now, you cannot tell anything about where people are from and whether they are constituents. Once again, I'd like to request the earliest possible response to our public information requests. We will send tomorrow a 3rd request, which is going to ask you to describe the membership and mission of any ad hoc committee dealing with potential lease or sale of the Peralta District headquarters land, the area between 8th Avenue and 880 there. We very much encourage you to take care of our public assets, and I know that you want to serve the Peralta Community College, including Laney College, and we're really counting on you to represent us as your taxpayers and your constituents, as well as your students and employees and local residents. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Arthur Levy. I'm an Oakland resident. And when I heard about the stadium proposal, it raised a lot of questions in my mind. And what I realized tonight is I'm not the only one. Listening to some members of the board and the students, this proposal has raised a lot of questions in people's minds. And I think it's important for the board and the staff to respond publicly to those questions and provide the necessary information to support confidence in the board's process and the decision making. But I have 2 questions that I just wanted to raise for the board. One is how the board can sell its own district headquarters. Now, this is clearly not surplus property. It's being used, as the headquarters. Now, has any study been done into alternative educational uses for the property, such as for dorms or buildings for Laney College? And if not, how can you say that this land is surplus and not usable for educational purposes? And if the idea is that a new headquarters will be built, is the board able to create surplus land simply by selling it and placing the headquarters elsewhere? I think the public's interested in this, and I hope you will provide answers to that question. Secondly, what's the legal status of this property? It's long been used for educational purposes. How did it come to be used for educational purposes? Did whoever gave the property to the Oakland School District or this college district specify how it should be used? Are there any restrictions? That's a number one question to be looked into, and I expect that the board has looked into that as part of this proposal. And I'd ask that that information be made public so that we can have confidence in the decision-making process. So in closing, in the interest of full disclosure, fair public participation, and public confidence in your process, I'd ask that you make answers to these questions available either through your website or in response to requests to people who ask for it. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. My name is Alicia Caballero Christensen. I'm the Ethnic Studies Department Chair at Laney College. I'm a resident of East Oakland. I've attended classes as a student at Berkeley City College and Laney. And first, I want to thank all the trustees who've made time to meet with me. I really appreciate the space that you've been created for community members, for faculty, for students, for staff to come and share. It means a lot that you put the intention to create that time. And I wanted to share tonight, I've heard a lot about how there could be community benefit agreements if we negotiated with the A's. I also wanted to share how could there be negative impacts on all four colleges if some type of negotiation and A's development was to be built across the street and across the street from Laney and on top of the Peralta site. And one is FTES, right? When we think about the ways in which we get money per student, and if we have our enrollment go down, and I've been asking students, for example, how would they feel if there was more traffic, or there was more limited parking, or if there was more sound pollution? A lot of them, I have two examples I wanted to share. One student I have in my afternoon class right now, she can take classes from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. before she drops off her students in the morning, her children, and then picks them up by 2:30 from school. And she shared she specifically comes to Laney because it's right off the freeway and she can park really quickly. She said she wouldn't have enough time to take her course load to drive up to the other colleges. I have another student from San Francisco who started coming to Laney and taking my MLAT classes. He said he could go to CCSF, but he likes Laney in particular as closest to BART. And he said that he likes the tranquility of coming to Oakland versus being in San Francisco. So these are two students I have currently right now. If we lose those students in our enrollment, that is not only terrible for Laney, that is frightening for our entire district when we think about FTES and the impact that can have on apportionment and the money that we would get for our colleges. Because there's one idea, could they go to another college? But if we, for example, what happens if with all that noise pollution, with all the traffic, they just don't come to Peralta, period? And then I also wanted to share in terms of jobs. I went specifically to the job fair today at Laney College, and I went to the ACE, was giving out free hats and bobbleheads and keychains, and I got some goodies, I'll admit. And I was asking them in terms of what jobs specifically were they really recruiting for students. They were saying 13-hour jobs that were seasonal, specifically with no benefits. And my question would be, what type of jobs, if we are going to negotiate for community benefit agreements, where is specifically are they flexible jobs in terms of students only not only being able to work like a couple hours here and there? Is it consistent? Because I already know you can get a higher wage at Emeryville working at Nordstrom's Rack, and they were saying there's a hiring sign. So my thing is, we're talking about jobs and internships. Let's talk about things that will actually create jobs that are sustainable, that provide benefits, that actually create a career pathway for students. Because the majority of the jobs I saw advertised today were not specifically on that type of path. So thank you so much.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is James Van. I'm a member of two organizations that have joined the coalition, Stay the Right Way, the Oakland Tenants Union, and the Coalition of Advocates for Lake Merritt. I have a question. Number 20. Has the board ever discussed or thought or had an intent of approaching the A's to say, would you be willing or interested in buying our site? If the board never had that thought or intent, then you're involved in a situation where the concern is not mutual. In other words, you're in a situation where you can be played. The the longer you draw this issue out, and some people are saying it may be up to a year, you can already see the effect it's having on the students, on the teaching environment, on your meetings. It's only going to get worse. You're going to have more and more time devoted to this issue. Also, the longer you draw this out and the more you interact and let the A's pay for your consultant, let the A's, you're boxing yourself in to ultimately have to agree. The longer this plays out, you're boxing yourself in. There's no way to mitigate the traffic, no way to mitigate the effect it's going to have on displacement of those communities near the college. There's no way to mitigate the environmental impacts on the channel. There's no way to mitigate the effect on the students and the educational environment. Save yourself time, energy, and concern. Just say no now. You do not have to stretch this out. Say no now. This is not in the interest of the college. It's not in the interest of your promises to education of the students. There is nothing in this for you. Say no now. Thank you.
Is Naomi Huddleston in the room? Naomi Huddleston had a speaker card. Beth Keene, Evelyn Lord, Evan DeGennaro, and Ben Schneider.
Good evening. My name is Evelyn Lord. I'm a librarian at Laney College. And I'm here because I know at the next meeting, you will have an opportunity to stop of resources already. We can only participate more. And it's the investment of our most precious resources, stadium. Of the A's has promised his fans that this new site will have tailgating, which is drinking. I fear for our young women students and all the fans coming through campus drinking and all the sexual harassment that will come out of that. I fear for all our students who want to be on campus, want to be in that tranquil environment, and we have this security presence, police presence on our campus, intimidating just by their presence alone our students who are there to learn. It doesn't fit. It's not a good fit. And so I just ask you to stop this and let us focus on what we are here for, which is education. It's education for our community. Please stop this process in December. Thank you.
Beth Keene, Evan, and Ben.
Uh-oh. Good evening. How are you doing? It's getting pretty late, but I just want to keep it simple. I'm part-time at Laney ESL. It's my second year. I teach ESL. Majority of my students say that no, it doesn't seem like it will really benefit them to have a giant stadium with numerous events right next to school. Go. And I think for me, I feel like we're trapped in a movie or even like a B movie, and it would be real easy to see, like if you're watching this movie, who would you want to win this battle? Really, like if you just look at it in terms of that, when you see these situations time and time again where, oh, there's valuable land and we got to get it and we got to convince the people that have been living there that we're going to benefit them in some way. When time and time again throughout history, we've seen the opposite happen. And I feel like as a teacher, I'm dedicated to public education. Anything that the A's can promise millions of dollars to me seems like an attempt to privatize education. And from what I've seen, the privatization movement has not had good effects. We can look in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina. What happened to public education after charter schools and those who were making a profit moved in? What happened to that community that had historically lived there? So I can't help but to see similar things happening. And I just hope that you have the long-term vision to see, again, what the effects of this decision are. And I agree, it feels like the longer the foot dragging, the more suspicion develops. And I know people have said, hey, come talk to me. It's very clear. You can see what I think, but why this foot dragging? And it can only seem to people that, well, there must be some kind of negotiation and it must be pretty sweet. So as long as we can figure out how to sell that to people, then let's let it drag on. That's the only thing that I can see happening with the long time that it's taking. So I'm 40 years old, but I think if I was 11 years old, I could see right through this very simply. And real quick, I'll end it. I got a moment? Okay, some years ago, a cousin of mine met Mark McGuire, and they were out, she met him, and they ended up, they said, hey, Mark asked her out on a date. She shows up at his house. He answers the door in a towel. His hair is still dry. He said, I just got out of the shower. And so, yeah, right. You know what he was looking for. So I just can't help to think that's a metaphor for what's happening now. The A's are showing up in a towel saying, hey, let's get to know each other.
Ben Schneider, Steve Stevenson, Ben Snyder, Steve Stevenson, Todd Schwenk, Lisa Malu.
Hi there. Good evening, Madam President, other trustees. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak in front of you today. So I know I came in here with my literal A's hat on, but as a member of the Eastlake community, I've lived in Clinton neighborhood for about 3 years now, as somebody who has the privilege of sharing his home with 3 Oakland educators, I can tell you that any project that I didn't think would benefit the Eastlake community or that would damage the community college district that is so much a part of our lives as Oaklanders, I wouldn't support it. But in complete honesty today, I can tell you that I believe that this new ballpark project will be a benefit to the community college district, to the Eastlake community, and to Oakland as a whole. So I've heard mentioned the workforce development opportunities that the Oakland A's would offer to Laney College students. And I would like to point out that there is no other community college district in the country that has the opportunity to develop that kind of relationship with a professional sports franchise. And if you think about the kind of opportunities that would give to potential students who would like to get experience working with a professional team, to culinary arts students who would like to work with the concessionaires for the A's, to visual and audio arts who would like to work with the billboard operators of the Oakland Athletics, that this is an opportunity to them. And this could be a boon for enrollment for the community colleges They would be able to offer something that no other college district could. Further, we'd like to point out that the A's are more than willing to develop other properties in the vicinity, much of which would be devoted to low-income housing. This is housing that would be made available to Laney College students. This is housing that would be made available to Laney and other Peralta College educators, and as such would make it easier for these students and educators to make it to class and to do their jobs. And finally, as a resident of Eastlake, and as somebody who has met with several representatives from the chambers of commerce in that area, it is widely believed that this would be an opportunity for local business owners, that with the additional properties being developed, some of them low income, in addition to certain land use measures that have been proposed by the A's, that this could actually be an opportunity for additional business, or additional customer base for local businesses, and for others within the community who have always dreamed of opening a small business to do so. And so, more than just being an A's fan, but as a member of the community, as somebody who cares about the community colleges and public education in the area, I think this is an opportunity to work with, or for the district to work with the A's to really be part of the solution for Oakland. I've spoken to David Cavell, and I know that's what he believes as well. So thank you for the time. I urge you to take advantage of this opportunity. Thank you. Nothing, sir.
Speakers, I'd like us to maintain civility and order, please. Each person has a chance to speak. Let's let each person have their opportunity. Mr. Schneider, was that the guy that just, okay. Steve Stevenson, Todd Schwenk, Lisa Malo, and Jennifer Shanowski. And after Jennifer, Jeff Sinceri.
Hi. He actually covered a whole lot of what I was going to say, so I'll save us all a bunch of time and say what he said. My name is Steve Stevenson. I'm a resident and business owner in Oakland. I haven't attended any of the schools in the Peralta system, but I know multiple people who have had their lives changed by it, and I really appreciate its place in our community. I am an A's fan, but first and foremost, I'm an Oakland fan. I would not be here today or supporting this in any way if I didn't think that this was something that the city and the area would benefit from. That said, I do believe the A's are the best partner for Laney and the surrounding area. If that land is going to be developed, I can't envision another developer sort of taking the time to get the community involved and to listen to people ahead of a development, or another developer that would want to bake in community benefits, or specifically programs for Laney students and faculty. I can't imagine a high-rise condo going in and having those kind of opportunities shared. Personally, I see a ton of opportunities for the college and neighborhood. A lot of the stuff he covered with the housing, with the programs for the for students to be able to come in and work at various levels, not even just at the stadium, but in management, in the team, and to be able to walk into the workforce with those things on your resume, I think would be a huge benefit. Yeah, like I said, I do think that they would be a great partner, and if they're allowed to develop the land, I'll be as big a part of holding them accountable to that potential as I am for advocating at that site. Thank you.
Our next speaker, Todd Schwenk, and just let me call the rest: Lisa Malo, Jennifer Shanowski, and Jeff Sinceri, and then we also have Blake Johnson, who's ceding his time to Jennifer.
Good evening, board. First and foremost, I'd like to thank you for your public service. Nighttime meetings are a thing. Thank you. And thanks for letting the students speak first and foremost, because I used to be one. That said, what I didn't get to say last month was we realize this project has its detractors. And to the critics in the room, I want to say you're going to be heard. I'm glad that there's meetings already going on your side, as it were, so that the articulations will lead us to a solution. Because more than anything, how shall I say? Yeah, I'm a baseball fan. It's kind of how I dress for the games. But I'm also a big fan of Oakland. I live less than a mile from the campus. So anything that happens there has an impact on me. And if I could address two things, noise pollution. Yes, there's noise pollution. There's the freeway, there's the airport, there's Amtrak. Traffic impact mitigation. It's a terrible design. There's no flow right now going through that campus. The stadium would allow a redesign of that whole area. We could control the sound, we could move the traffic, we could make it a much better campus scene than what we already see. I own a security company, so I would like to speak to the people that are concerned about security for the area. And that is a well-traveled street is a much safer street. And if you walk around some of those neighboring blocks at night, I got to tell you, I walk pretty fast and look around. Putting a ballpark down there is a lot like putting a movie theater in. It brings up the restaurants, it brings up the night spots, it adds to business, it adds to economic activity. And if I could address the two things that perhaps students need to know about, there's going to be jobs there, and there's going to be readily available jobs, and they might not be the best jobs, but they're there, they're flex jobs, they're entry level, and they'll give you an in to a big company called the Oakland Athletics. And that said, I think there's a real branding bounce that can happen with Peralta College jumping in. As my friend Ben said earlier, it's kind of a unique partnership. I don't see it as a privatization or anything as such other than a partnership. We love Oakland. Baseball 6 months a year, but when you live in Oakland, it's 12 months a year. And I think, how shall I say, as neighbors, we can all make this work. But more than anything, I want to remind the Peralta College Board, and thank you once again, you folks are in the driver's seat. Negotiate upwards. There's money on the table. Go get it. Let's make the better college. Let's make a better scene for the Oakland A's. And let's make a much better town in which we all share and live. And thanks for listening once again.
Lisa, Melu, Jennifer?
Good evening. And since half of my comments were crossed out by removing items from the agenda, I'm going to cede my remaining time to Alvina, who tried to put in a card, but it somehow got lost. So, and I believe we have 3 speaker cards worth of time, Jeff Sinceri, Blake Johnson, and myself. Okay, so I'd like to talk about 3 items that remain on my comments. So one of them is the calendar, the meeting calendar that will be discussed later on tonight. I noticed that there will only be 1 meeting held in the months of February, April, and May. And I also noticed that once again, the budget only appears twice in the issues to be discussed on those calendar, and that those 2 times will be the first time in June, after faculty have already left and can no longer weigh in on the issue, and then again in September, when, again, it's going to need to be passed in order to get to the state in time. And so the PFT is concerned about the Board of Trustees holding the district accountable for the budget and ensuring that faculty, staff, students, and the public have an opportunity to weigh in, ask questions, and voice concerns. Another thing that's conspicuously absent from tonight's agenda that has been a real concern of the PFT for the last couple of weeks are the district reserve funds and the budget in general. So at Laney College last month, it was a budget presentation brought to light the fact that there was an adjusted reserve amount. I don't know if everybody knows about this. The reserves that we thought to be at about 14% were adjusted down. And the first quarter report that you have on the agenda tonight, I believe it's item 7.5 that you'll be discussing, shows that the district overspent by $7 million last year and had $5.6 million in prior year adjustments, which now brings down the reserve balance to $7.8 million or 5%. The other concern that I had just looking at that first quarter report was that if you look at the 15-16 actuals, so those are the actual spending, those books should have been closed a year ago. In the budget book that was passed at the end of September, The difference between those actuals and the ones reported in the quarterly report for tonight are different by $5 million. So that's a 30% difference in what was reported 2 months ago and what's being reported tonight. And so I would just like clarification on why that is. That's my first one, right?
You have your set, and then you have Jeff Sinceri, and then you have Blake Johnson.
I do. So that's my first one, right? Okay, I'm almost done. So PFT sincerely hopes that the board is going to ask the hard questions and force transparency on the issue to make sure that shared governance bodies are heard and that we really pay attention to issues that could change the trajectory of the district for many, many years to come. And of course, the last thing I wanted to say, which has been said very well by others in this room, is that the stadium does continue to be an issue that's really at the forefront of the minds of many faculty, staff, and students. And while we realize that everyone's very careful to say that no decision has yet been made, as many people have pointed out tonight, a lot of resources are going to this question. So I am spending time, money, and energy. Students are spending time, money, and energy. Faculty, staff, administrators, everyone's spending, and trustees as well, are spending time, money, and energy on this issue. This issue, this potential stadium, could undermine our educational mission, and we really hope that the Board of Trustees is aware of the fact that the Participatory Governance Council, the PGC, will be evaluating the potential stadium proposal prior to any vote being taken in December. And so we hope that you take the opportunity to use the rubric that we as a shared governance body developed together and use that in your consideration of moving forward at all, knowing that we continue to spend these resources. So thank you and have a good night. And I'll cede the rest of my time to Alvina.
Good evening. Thank you for finding my speaker card. And as much as I want to echo the appreciation for letting students speak first, I also just want to appreciate for hearing all of our public comments, as there are many of us all evening. So again, I'm here to talk about Chinatown and our Chinatown voices who oppose the stadium at the Peralta site. You know, tonight we're a slightly smaller group, but we are still passionately following and fighting this issue. Last time when I came, we delivered over 1,700 signatures of our neighbors and small businesses and students and Laney community and Chinatown and Eastlake community members who oppose and reject this proposal as well, and urge you all to also reject this proposal. Since then, we continue to talk with our neighbors, small businesses, seniors, students, and our opposition continues to grow as well. This isn't about if we love the A's or not. This is about how much we love our community, how much we love Chinatown, Eastlake, the Laney community, and the Peralta community colleges. Our communities in Chinatown rely on the classes at Laney to improve their English as new immigrants. They rely on the job skill classes to change their career pathways and to improve ultimately the quality and livelihood of their families. And I want Chinatown to stay at the forefront of your minds as well, because Laney is situated here in this neighborhood where there are thousands of residents living, let alone Eastlake, that are thousands more immigrants and refugees living there for 5, 10, 20 years, right? And what I need to say about this neighborhood that I also want to paint the picture of is that we rely on this neighborhood for our livelihoods, for our critical services that are in language, for our grocery stores, for our cultural institutions, for our religious institutions, and we need this neighborhood to stay afloat. But we're already overburdened and extremely at risk of displacement with multiple full city block market rate projects coming in and raising the area rental rates, where formerly affordable SROs, single room occupancies, or affordable units are now getting bought and sold, which inevitably leads to more tenant harassment and evictions and displacement, where commercial buildings are getting bought and sold and raising the rents 3-4 times in 1 month for small immigrant businesses that can't stay afloat. and threatening all of our livelihoods and the livelihood of this neighborhood. All of these already are happening. We can't fight through all of these burdens and pressures and a stadium mega development and expect that Chinatown will remain a neighborhood for immigrants, refugees, and working families to live and thrive. Because what I want to say, and as I'm echoing other folks saying, it's not just a stadium. It's a stadium mega development where they're talking about more market rate housing, more high-end hotels and high-end retail, and it's all more money for corporate interests and the investors of the team. So I want to reframe that. It's not about the team. It's not about the love of the sport. It's about the fact that this is still about private profit for these investors and these billionaires. And lastly, we really appreciate all the time that some of you have made to meet with us, and we also hope to hear a response from other requests that we've made to meet with other trustees, and really want to come and urge you all to do what's in your power to protect our communities that are also your students, that are also your staff and faculty. And you can stop all of this now. And echoing what other folks have said before, we don't need to spend any more of our public resources, which is time, our valuable, valuable time, going late into the night on this unsolicited proposal. Please stop this now and take care of our community. This really is a death knell for a lot of our working class families in Chinatown and Eastlake. Thank you.
Joseph Friedman.
Good evening, Peralta board members. My name is Joseph Friedman. I was a Peralta student for a long time, about 11 years. I was the president of the Tobacco List Club over here. I also helped get the Laney College Tobacco List Club started, as well as the Merritt College Tobacco List Club and the College of Alameda Tobacco List Club started. I transferred to Cal State East Bay in the winter quarter of 2016. I've been a student over there for just about the past 2 years, but I'm actually still involved in the Tobacco List Club. I'm one of the program coordinators, so I train and recruit new club members. My question for you guys is, as of September 1st, 2017, all CSUs in the state of California are 100% smoke and vape free. I guess my question for you guys is, so one of the things we've been fighting to do is to try to get all Peralta colleges like 100% smoke and vape free. So I guess my question for you is that something is that one of your goals to do? Thanks for your time, guys.
We have no more speaker cards? Can I have a card, please? Just come.
Hi, my name is Johnny Williams. I'm a faculty member at Laney. I wasn't going to speak, but this is just, I have mixed emotions. My father went to Laney in 1966. My brother...
I'm sorry, we can't hear you.
Hello. Is everyone awake? I have night class normally. Do people need to stand up? No? Okay. All right. I was saying my father graduated from Laney in 1966, my brother in 2005. I've been a faculty member since 2008. I have two emotions. First, I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed to even be here right now. How can the district that birthed the Black Panthers be considering to sell their land to a for-profit company? The Black Panthers are rolling over in their graves. I am embarrassed. I'm mad because I have to be up at my class at 8:30 tomorrow morning. I even have to waste my night here to listen to this even thought of us selling ourselves. School and sports are not a mix. The students at Laney are serious. They're not playing. They're not drinking. They're not having fun. They're there to work to improve themselves and improve their lives. And it's sickening to me that we even have to spend our time debating this. Where are we as a district? Who are we as a district? Why do we even have to consider this? It's frustrating. Why is Donald Trump president? Donald Trump is president, not to say that anyone on the board supports Donald Trump, but because who is in here fighting for the little guy? The only people I see being fought for are the corporate interests. Who is fighting for the little guy? Who is fighting for the community member? Who is fighting for the Chinese student, for the African American student, for the Latino student, from the incarcerated person coming to Laney to have a safe space? Why are you scared? I don't hear students say they're scared to be at Laney. And we want to invite people on campus who are scared. What are they scared of? Students? Education? Enlightenment? What are you scared of? We do not want scared people in this community because they're not scared of the people in the community. They're scared of perceptions that they perceive of those people. And it's embarrassing. I'm embarrassed to even have to be a part of this. It is truly embarrassing. That's all I have to say.
Do we have any more speaker cards, Madam Clerk? That concludes public comment.
Thank you to all the speakers who came out tonight for public comment. Chancellor, would you oblige us by at least addressing some of the concerns around the budget? So we're trying to give you the opportunity now to at least address some of the comments that were made with respect to overspending and the reserves.
Yeah, we have a presentation that's going to be provided.
Right.
That will explain
And so we think it would be wise for you to go ahead and at least now while I think so. I think that would be good.
So we need to move.
So just point of clarification. So we're moving 7.5 up for this presentation right now.
To advance, you'll go down. To advance, you'll hit this down.
No,
button.
for the mic. Okay, it's
Yeah,
on.
it's on. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, and it's already up.
And then let's adjust the lights. And you're good.
Hello, everyone. We're ready to get started with the presentation now. So if I could have your attention, please. My name is Christine Williams. Oh,
So are all my trustees in the room? Can I see my trustees? So I have to make a motion to move 7.5, which has been moved to action. I need a motion to move this. So moved. I have a second. All in favor? action item that has already been moved to action, 7.5. We just need it, it's okay. This is gonna be the discussion part and presentation. We will have a discussion. We're just moving this up, so, right. Motion carries, thank you. It's a procedural, and I just want to thank our student trustee for bringing that to my attention.
So, hello everyone. My name is Christine Williams. I'm the interim Vice Chancellor of Finance, and I have my directors with me here tonight. And we have a brief presentation of addressing our reserves that we know have been a concern now for many. And so we'll talk about the transition in the budget and the fluctuation in the amounts. On November 28th, at the board retreat, we will go into a detailed workshop of where we'll spend, I believe we've been given by the Chancellor 2 hours to go into a deeper dive of the budget and talk about building the budget and the transactions and how things work through the year-end close and why the numbers shift at certain times. So this presentation will give you an overview, but it's not designed to go into a deeper dive the way we will on the 28th. So I just want to make that very clear now. And with that said, we'll get started with the presentation. Thank you. Okay, so I'll ask David to start us off. David Yang is our Director of Fiscal Services. David, please take the mic. Thank you.
So the first part that impacted our reserve balance is due to the student receivables audit finding. At the end of 15-16, we received an audit finding from our external auditors that we needed to take care of in fiscal year 16-17. Approximately $8.6 million in outstanding student receivables were on our books as of June 30th of 2016. Essentially, this student receivable balance was becoming too large, and it was something that we needed to take care of. Some of these student receivables balances were over 9 years old, so they needed to be written off. And the next slide that I'll have will have the schedules of the write-offs over the next 5 years. Like I mentioned, these student receivables go back 9 years, go back to fiscal year 7-8. And we worked with our auditors to come up with a reasonable schedule to write off these amounts. So the first amount that we wrote off in fiscal year 16-17 was $4.9 million, which obviously reduced our reserves and fund balance. So on this slide shows off the write-off schedule for fiscal year 16-17. As you can see, it's the $4.9 million that we did actually write off. And then over the next 5 years, those are the amounts that will be written off. So the way this will work is that there's a schedule where it's 20% after 1 year, 40% after 2 years, 60% after 3 years, 80% after 4 years, and then 100% after 5 years. So what you see for fiscal year 16-17 is everything that is 5 years or older. So this goes back to from fiscal year 08 to fiscal year 12. And then the second row of information that you see for 17-18 that we'll most likely write off will be the amount that is from fiscal year 13. So we do have an action plan as to resolving the depletion of our reserves and to recover some of the amounts that we have written off in our books. So first thing that we'll do, besides what we've already have been doing, which is to do additional outreach to notify active students with balances higher than $500. We have been doing that in the past, but reaching out only to students that were in potentially would be dropped if they owed us more than a certain dollar amount. The next thing that we're also going to participate in, which we did submit to the board for approval, a contract with the State Chancellor's Office to participate in the Chancellor's Office tax offset program called COTOP. These are for the past students that owe us from 5+ years ago. The third thing that we're going to do is also partner with a collections agency to recover this amount that we did write off. We're now in the process of going through all the potential agencies, and we're looking at agencies that have dealt with student receivables balances, know how to work with students in order to make this work well, not only for us, Peralta, to collect the funds that are owed, but also to make sure that we treat our students fairly. And that's pretty much what we have at this point for the action plan on student receivables. And Dr. Aberg will go over the budget side.
Well, one of the things that you are seeing is that we have a lot of students who register for classes and then they do not pay. So that's how this $8 million get the way that it is and has been for a while. So one of the strategies that we want to use is to use a vendor who can work with the students as future students as they're registering for classes to make sure that they can have a payment plan with them. And this way, for students who cannot pay their classes before classes start, they can have an agreement with the vendor. And therefore, we can be in a position whereby only students who either have that relationship or students who have paid, of course, students on financial aid will be protected, will be able to stay in their classes. This is a system that has been used in higher education for quite a while, and that's something that we are going to explore to bring to Peralta.
Hello, I'm Luther Aberg, your budget director, and I wanted to show you, talk with you about the effects of the budget. So on the first column, you'll see 15-16, and then the second column is the 16-17 budget, and the third column is the 16-17 actuals. I wanted to show you the 15-16 actuals, and then the 16-17 budget and the 16-17 actuals to be able to show you, you're on your first line in funds 1 and 2, the largest unrestricted budgets, the surplus, net surplus, or deficit that occurred from year to year. And you'll see in the first 15-16, we had 1.1 million surplus. The budgeted amount in 16-17 was close to 1,893,000 surplus. And then finally, in the actuals of 16-17 was 7 million deficit. So going down the lines there, you'll see that the beginning balance in Fund 1 and 2 is the first line in the second portion. Beginning balance in is the other unrestricted funds. Funds 3, 7, 10, and 59, and 30. So then the next one, section down, you'll see the audit adjustment. There was an audit adjustment of 939,000 in 15-16. And going further down, you take the beginning balances, adjust them by the surplus or deficit at the top, adjust it again by the audit adjustment, and you have the ending balance. And so the very last section, I wanted to point out that first line showing what is equal to the 5%. The 5% calculation is going to be your total fund balance divided by your total expenditures for the unrestricted. That's where you get your 13.2%. I don't know if I can. Oh, just touch the screen?
Yeah, no, it doesn't move. Oh, 1 second.
Down there. Oh. So I guess I'm done. Here we go.
Here, let me see.
No, that's fine.
Like this, and then like that. What are they wanting to see?
I don't know. Can you see it better now? No?
The reserve level is the bottom of the slide. This is the bottom of the slide.
Oh, they can't see it though.
But they can't see it from this down there. Yeah. So, if you need, for that bottom section, the 5% mandatory reserve ends up being $7.4 million in 15-16, which is 13.2% of expenditures. The 16-17 budget is $7.196 million, with it ending 14.94% of the expenditures. And in 16-17 actuals, you see 7.5 million, 7.6 million roughly, being the 5% of the expenditures, and that leaves 5.15%. You can tell that the expenses are becoming larger because the 5% mandatory is growing. So I just wanted to let you know then that the 7 million deficit in the 16-17 actuals was included in the 17-18 final adopted budget in the estimated actuals column. So that number doesn't show up as a deficit clearly with that 5 million deficit that you guys that was referred to earlier, because that 7 million was already in the estimated actuals. Those journals had already taken place. And so otherwise you would have had a deficit of $12 million when you combine the two. But you saw the bulk of it in your adopted budget presentation. So I'll let you know what the bulk of that 7 million was. For one of the line items was the part-time faculty, was over budget by about 3.5 million. The second line item was the STRS on behalf payment, which was the GASB 68, and that's new. It's been in place for 2 years, and that's a wash because the funds that are paid by the state are recorded in the revenues, and these expenses are recorded in the expense. So if you look at both revenues and expenses, you'll see a wash. What we're looking at right now is the expense side only, so you're seeing a big increase. But we got to look at the revenues as well, and that's not showing up here. The third piece was the PERS, and PERS didn't have an adjustment with GASB 68, but there were prior year adjustments. Those two items cannot be predicted. They're calculation by STRS and by PERS. They come in at the end of the year during the closing process. There's no way to budget for them. We can find a line item, but there's no specific line item for that that's specifically for that purpose. So that could be a discussion with David and I in the budgeting process. The next line item that had the effect of the deficit was medical benefits. And part of the problem with the benefits section, ever since I've been here, is the difficulty in identifying what the claims are going to be each year. And that's because we're self-insured. And self-insured has volatility like this. You don't know what's coming in, you don't know what claims are going to be made, you don't know who's going to need what. So trying to come up with a solid calculation to identify this cost is very difficult. We have a small pool and we take on all the risk. Insurance companies have a huge pool, they take on the risk, and that's why we have steady premiums that we have to pay, like in Kaiser. But for CoreSource, that's on us. And so you got this going on. And so trying to calculate what's going to take place is very difficult. But we're working on it. I'm trying to learn as much as I can so we can have a better base to be able to do the better calculations. So, David explained the 5 million to you. I explained the 7 million to you and why it was that way. The resolution for it is to review the current year budget and identify any possible savings that we can find and do a revised budget in January. And we need to look for $4 million. Yeah.
So thank you, Luther, David, and thank you, Chancellor, for your comments. So at the November 28th workshop, that's where, when we come together to look at the revision of the budget, we'll look for cost savings, and we'll need everyone's help and suggestions on where we can make that deficit up. We do have the cost savings in the budget, so it will be a matter of all of us working together as a team to pull together to build that fund balance. So I want to thank you for your time and your interest, and that concludes the presentation. Trustee
Don't go away.
Weinstein.
You can stay there. We're going to have lots of questions for you. So can I have my trustees who have questions, please come over to, here, it'll just be easier since the slides are up there. Is there a microphone down there? Oh, great.
Have trustee questions, but we also have a few questions that were that are public questions. So we could do a card and then do a.
Do we have public comment on this?
We have some questions. I mean, it's a presentation.
Okay. Okay. Is that Jennifer?
Yeah, I'd like to open up. Okay, so we need to do a vote to open because the budget is a big concern. So could I ask, Madam President, if we could have a vote to open up public comment regarding the budget so that we can make the process a little bit more orderly and get the questions answered at this time?
Most definitely. So can I have a motion to open for public comments?
I'd make that motion. Do we have a
second by Riley? The motion by Trustee Brown, second by Riley. All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries. We can open up for public comment. No, you can do it. You have a microphone there.
So I have two questions. So one is, I'm looking at the budget book from the budget that was passed in September. And in this budget book, I see that the final budget from 16-17 compared with the estimated actuals for 16-17 for the part-time academic salaries are off by $4 million in this budget book. So what was budgeted in the 16-17 budget was 8.6 million, and the estimated actuals in this book are 12.5 million. So are you saying that we were actually $7 million over what was budgeted? Because here, this doesn't have that $7 million. So if we're saying part of the write-off and the reason that the reserves are lower is the part-time budget, but that's accounted for here.
That's another thing that's going to get fixed in the 18-19 budget. This discussion has taken place before. The budgeting for part-time faculty is split. Portion, Fund 1, the other portion goes to Fund 12. That's why you don't see it. But all the actuals end up in Fund 1 because of the 50% rule business that goes on. So to solve that problem, and that's not part of that deficit. It's got nothing to do with it. But what will solve that problem is to budget 100% of the part-time faculty in Fund 1 and no longer budget in Fund 12 because that doesn't end up in Fund 12 anyway. Then that variance will go away and you'll see a true variance of what actually was spent and what actually was budgeted. And so you won't see that anymore because we're going to fix it in 18-19.
I think maybe I didn't explain my question well enough. So if I understand correctly, part of the amended reserve amount, the reason it's so much lower is this $7 million, right? Right? Not the student write-off, that's the $5.6 million, but there's also this $7 million. And I thought I heard you say that part of that is because of the poor budgeting for part-time salaries. Is that correct?
It's the way that was budgeted, yes. And also, there was overspending on that by about $3 million, yes.
So what I'm saying is, though, in the budget book that we had in September, it is under budgeted, right? It's overspent by $4 million. So why are we then accounting for that overspending again in the $7 million?
You're not. It's part of the year-end close process where some of these funds are moved between Fund 1 and Fund 12. So That part hadn't taken place by that time. That's one of the last steps that are done in the closing process. You're not seeing a finished product there. That's why it's called estimated actuals.
Maybe I'm not asking my question
I think
well.
you and I need to get together, and I'll go over things with
Well, I just don't understand why the revision of $7 million happened. And I thought that you said that part of it was part-time budgets, but so that's my concern is I don't understand it. The other question I have is in the quarterly report that's actually item 7.5 on the agenda.
you. Is this?
So this is the quarterly report, and I'm looking at these numbers, and I see that the numbers in the presentation that you're giving are the same as the numbers from the budget book. But when I look at these numbers, the actuals are different. So is what is listed here in item 1E, which says fund balance ending, is that not the reserves?
It is all the unrestricted. For that report, the state doesn't care about some of our unrestricted funds. So we've got, and if you look at the top there, the report for the state is Fund 11. Our Fund 11 is for categoricals and grants. It's a restricted fund. So that doesn't even match. The thing is, you're looking at Fund 1, Fund 2, Fund 3, Fund 7, Fund 10, Fund 30, and Fund 59. And so that's what we concentrate
So when this
on.
says unrestricted general fund revenue, expenditure, and fund balance, that's Fund 11?
It's Fund 11 as far as the report goes. That's a state report. Those numbers are different than what we have in our books. And the county even has different numbers. So again, this stuff takes more than just a conversation right here between you and I. It takes much more explanation. And we got to sit down and go over that. And I hope that I'll be able to explain a lot of that stuff in the budget committee to you, so that you'll have a clear picture of this and you won't be wondering what's going on with these numbers. Yeah, it takes more than just standing up here and talking with you to this.
Could I, just a simple question here. A lot of these figures on each of these documents change pretty regularly. And what I'm hearing you say is that there's a fluctuation over time that causes that. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's, especially the budget. You know, you guys adopt the tentative budget in June, you adopt it in September, and even after you've adopted, the very next day, it's changing. And actuals are doing the same thing.
That doesn't give one a very comfortable feeling here, but if you look just at a simple document, the simple figures, you've got the a 5% reserve. That's mandatory. That's not a choice. And then you've got the reserve for encumbrances, which is also a reserve. And the budget for 16-17 was $13,328,000, and we ended up with $223,000. I'd like to sit in on a meeting where you can explain to me where that 13 million went.
Okay. If you add the 7 million and the 5 million, that's where it went. But this, maybe the structure of this report needs to be a little bit more in order, because some things, the top line up there for the deficit and the surplus, that gets added or subtracted to the second two lines. So maybe the format of this could be changed so that it's clearer to people.
Trustee Brown?
A question regarding the manner in which we list the unrestricted general fund, because when we're looking at the budget, when we're adopting the budget, we understand that the categorical funds have specific earmarks and specific uses, and we're looking at the general fund in terms of understanding what amounts can be allocated where to what programs. That's the governance policy part. And I'm wondering, is there a way that we could footnote what fund numbers are being included in the unrestricted general fund so that we could track it no matter whether it's the report that goes to the County Office of Ed or the report that goes to the state? Because on the ground here, we're making determinations regarding what authorizations we're going to give for raises. We're trying to figure out what positions we could fill, and if the if the fund numbers are moving around and the numbers move according to that, we need to somehow be able to tack them down according to the footnotes, so we're knowing what numbers we actually have to work with. That is necessary for the governance perspective. So what my question is when we are given these budgets for approval, what is the where's the legend? Where's the clarification so that we know that we're actually looking at what we think we're looking at, which is the unrestricted general fund?
The thing that gets confusing by bringing up that 311 report is it's because it's a state report and it compiles numbers differently than what we present with our budget. So if we can devise some format that will lay things out in the way that you're talking about, I would be happy to do that.
Thank you for bringing that up, Trustee Brown. That is one of the recommendations that we made, Luther, at the June retreat, was that adding the appendix that would show the movement between the funds and how they fluctuate and where the monies are coming from. So that part of it has already, the implementation process has already started. So it'll be easy to follow in the book and know which funds are combined into the general funds and what they're being used for.
DC Williams, I'd also like to add to that. I'm sorry, I'm moderating from over here. And to ensure that there is narrative that goes along with this, right? Having columns and rows, I mean, it's all beautiful if you're if you're an accountant and you love looking at matrix-like forms, but the narrative is critical. And I think you've explained some of it quite well, and it really would be helpful for all of us to capture it, especially if we're talking about forms that are mandated by the state that we're submitting, and then we have a different process on how we're capturing and how we're managing our own financing structure. We really need a narrative that goes along with this. We'll take it back to, it looks like,
wasn't AB 361 supposed to simplify the budget process so that it was more uniform statewide because of that problem with it was supposed to be a clarification process, right? Or am I wrong about that legislation?
No, you're not wrong about it. The interpretation of it, I think, has varied from district to district as what that clarification looks like, and that's where we have the flexibility. And when we see that the numbers that we work with every day, we understand them because we see the ICUs, the ICCs that come in and the contracts that come in. So we know that these monies are going to change even though they haven't changed on the ledger yet. And so that part of it is not clear until it's actually updated and all the figures are in, and then the numbers change. So I think having that information in the appendices and having the differences that occur, and even having a little bit more explanation about the 50% rule, not going into a great deal of detail, but just to explain how that does impact the numbers at year-end close and that they may shift, would also be beneficial as well. So what we're hoping to accomplish on the 28th is more of a uniformed forum to where we look at this together as a team and talk about things that would be beneficial going forward, and put the best and the brightest minds together to come up with a format that's legible to all. Even if you're not working with numbers every day, you could take a look at this and know exactly how the numbers are moving. Okay.
So as we move forward for more comments, Clavon Smith, I see Trustee Weinstein, and then Trustee Gonzalez went in the queue. Thank you.
Yes, this is for Director Yang. Going back to the student receivables, the issue, two parts. The first is I think you presented that the audit was done in June, but it wasn't reflected in the September, but in the budget presentation in September. That's the first part. Why was there that lag there? And the second part is, and I was looking for the exact date, but in a previous accreditation cycle, our district got dinged pretty heavily on our student receivables. And it really was a big cause of a major shakeup in the district office. And supposedly after that, we responded with controls to ensure that that didn't happen. And so I wonder if there can be some kind of like explanation of the failure of those controls that we implemented less than a decade ago, and how we're back in the same place that we were in less than 10 years ago.
So to answer your first question, the reason why it didn't show up in the budget book is because our books weren't closed as of that time when it went to the board. Our books actually didn't officially close until late September. So there were about 2 or 3 weeks after the final budget was completed and submitted. Between that time and some of the closing process, some of the transactions that were posted didn't make it onto the budget book.
That wasn't a transaction, that was an audit finding. You reported that the audit finding was in June.
Right.
Okay. And so the second part, please.
The second part, I'm not aware of the previous accreditation item of student receivables.
I can't find the exact date, I'm sorry. It was, but the controls, you know, we presented that we were going to implement new controls, but this is the second time that we've heard the implementation of new controls to ensure that we didn't have this situation with student receivables. And so I wonder what controls were in place prior that failed this time.
This was the first student receivables finding that I've known of since I've been with the district. Been with the district for 4 years, and I wasn't aware of any prior findings that specifically dealt with student receivables.
And so that's basically, so are you also saying that you weren't aware of any controls for preventing as well? Okay.
I can only speak to, the student receivables were never written off based on the information that I looked at going back to fiscal year 2008.
So the controls that we're going to be implementing, these are the first times that we're going to implement such controls in the district?
In regards to student receivables.
Trustee Weinstein.
Hi, I guess I want to go back to the student receivables again. So if I understand this correctly, there are a number of years where the student receivables haven't been paid attention to? Is that what you're saying?
Trustee Weinstein, for whatever reason that's unknown, there was never an aggressive attempt to collect the student debt. It was passive, and at best, current students had payment plans, but there was no plan to aggressively collect outstanding student debt.
So with the students who have this debt, basically, I'm not saying this in a negative way, but with the students who have the debt, we've basically not gone after them to pay. Or do they end up paying anyway at a higher price and a higher interest rate?
So what happened is that a student registered for classes, and then the student promised to pay.
Right.
The student is done, and then the student doesn't pay for whatever reason, because a lot of our students, they have hard time making ends meet, so it's very difficult for some of them to pay. Then what we do, and I think that probably goes to Professor Smith's comment, is that we put a stop on the student so that she or he is not able to register for the next semester. So that's how that account receivable can grow over time. So every time you have students who don't pay like that, you have that. Now, if you look at the list of students who owe us money, they range anywhere from $2 to, what's the maximum, David, you would say?
For international students, it could go into several thousand.
And it could go into several thousands for out-of-state students. Or international students, as David mentioned. We also have out-of-state students. So for the in-state students, it tends to be less because of the fact that they pay in-state tuition.
Right.
And so that's how that account can really grow. But the measure that we really need to put in place is to make sure that there's not such a debt. But in order to, if we say that many students will not be able to really register, and believe me, at the beginning of every semester, it's always a struggle for the administration because students are begging to get in, and we know that they may need one more class to transfer, one more semester to finish the nursing program if they're in nursing and what have you. But what we need to do is really have a third party that the students could contract with, so that third party can collect for us over time. So
I'm sorry, Chancellor. So that I'm actually worried about that. I do want the students to pay their debts. I do know that students who are in debt often end up paying more than they took out in the first place. So I'm a little bit concerned how we are going to actually work with collection agencies, particularly now. I don't mean to be political, but we do know Betsy DeVos is trying to make it pretty hard for students to pay back debts, and they're having to pay back at a higher price. So I'm just wondering how we're going to do it so that we don't hurt the students, and also, wouldn't it make sense to find out about these students? What's going on with them? Why? Not just that they don't have the money. Are they dropping out? What is the status?
Yeah, we do.
Chancellor, I know it's going to be really too easy to get into a back and forth, and I would take those questions as thoughtful questions in terms of how we're planning for the retreat, for a deeper dive. I have more trustees who are going to bring other. So if you want to answer, go ahead and answer.
Just one small clarification, Dr. Weinstein.
Okay.
There's a difference between student loan and the student debt to us. Okay. The student loan is the one that they pay a lot of interest in that can accrue. The student debt to us is not the same way because they're not charged interest on that.
They're getting the
for
money.
that. So trustee, I'm going to move this along. Trustee Gonzalez-Wynn, and then Trustee Brown.
Thank you. I've got a few questions. Can you back up the slides to the one on the accounts receivable, the money we're going to write off over the next few years? And you've got a schedule there. You've got a schedule, this first or second slide, something like that. So first question I have is, what is the department that is in charge of collecting fees at Peralta? What's the office that does that? Who's in charge of that?
You want to?
Yeah. Student finance is responsible for reaching out to students.
Which vice chancellor is in charge of overseeing that particular operation, of making sure that when we've got debt, that it's collected? Who's the vice chancellor in charge of that?
That would be me, Trustee Ewing.
Okay, so this is your office, and your predecessors have allowed fairly significant sums of money to be not collected. All right. And so presumably some controls need to be put in place. Here's my bigger, actually, worry. I'm looking at this write-off schedule, and it's a write-off schedule of $8.5 million over a number of years. Right now, our ending fund balance is about $8 million, something like that on the books. And we've already written off $5 million. Let's just call that 2016-17 $5 million. And so there's another, like, I don't know, $3 million that we're going to write off that we think is not collectible right now. And so my question is, when we look at our current end balance, the statement of our end balance, we haven't written this off yet, but we're thinking that $3 million here isn't real. And so our actual end balance right now isn't even 5%. It's actually significantly less than 5%. It's maybe $3 million less than that 5%. Am I reading that correctly?
Yes, that's a real possibility.
So when we look at our end balance right now, we're saying we are at 5.3%, which is above the state minimum. Now, when I'm looking at our 311 form that we're supposed to be voting on tonight, that we're supposed to submit, The last items on that are items 6 and 7. And the first one says, did the district have significant events for the quarter, include incurrence of long-term debt, settlement of audit findings, legal suits, significant differences in budgeted revenues, expenditures, borrowed funds, etc.? And we say no. And then it says, if yes, list the events and their financial ramifications, but we don't list this at all. We've just written off $5 million, plus we overspent our budget by $7 million for a variety of things. And then it says, does the district have significant fiscal problems that must be addressed this year or next year? And we say no and no. I don't think this form is accurate. Disabuse me of my perception here, but I'm worried. And as a trustee right now, based on what I'm hearing, I don't think I can vote to send this forward to the state with confidence. And I want to be able to send this forward to the state. So I'm looking for clarification. Thank you.
Okay. Before we get that clarification, let's finish up with it. Looks like probably just one or two more comments. Trustee Brown.
Well, okay, so I've been on this board for 4 years. This makes 5. And in that time, there have been a lot of things that have come to light that we've had to deal with, right? So now we're seeing that we have a problem collecting debt when we know we're in an area where housing is expensive, food is expensive, transportation is expensive, and we're trying to educate the underserved. So the fact that people can't pay their bill doesn't surprise me. And so I'm really not interested in grilling the 2 people that we finally have in this position who are willing to say something about this problem. What I think we need to do is try and think about how we're going to try and maybe raise money through our foundation to support our students, and how we're going to avoid making inflammatory statements that are going to end us up not getting this budget or not getting approved as being in a situation of fiscal stability. And I think our responsibility here is to try and figure out how we're going to solve this problem and work together at this budget workshop on the 28th to solve our problems, not to point fingers, because if we lose these 2 people, we're back in a situation where we have a revolving door in our financial department, and we're finally getting stability. And ever since we lost our chancellor, in 2010 when the chancellor was removed, we've had interims, there's been issues that were with accreditation. We're finally not in accreditation problems. We finally have permanent presidents at the college. I think it's time that we figure out how we're going to solve this problem going forward. And I think the board governance responsibility is to delve deep into this budget and figure out how we're going to make sure that we have stability going forward, and that we could give a solid foundational structure to the next board that comes in or the next year, and make sure that our faculty feels comfortable with respect to being able to look at these budget numbers. So we have to translate them because the state uses one formula and the county uses another, and we have to turn it into the county and the state. All these problems exist, but I am not going to sit here and grill these 2 people up here who have the courage to bring this out in this budget presentation. I think our job as a governing board is to solve the problem.
I would be remiss if I left this podium without saying thank you to the one person who had the courage to state what has actually happened and who has had the courage to address this appropriately. Because you do not get into a deficit like this in 6 months. So I thank you for that. And I would like to encourage those, work with people here at the district to help you move the district forward. You do have some good people in place, but you do have to work together as a team, and do remember exactly what Trustee Brown said, because every word of it was true. And I thank you for that. And with that, we'll close. That's it. Thank you.
So the item is still open for discussion. We were still looking for a response to, I'm sorry, so Trustee Gonzalez-Wynn had a question about the checkbox at the bottom of the form.
Okay. Trustee Ewan?
Well, if I can restate. So on the 311 form, items 6 and 7 both declare that there was no significant events that need to be reported, and that there's no significant fiscal problems. But I think your information, and I'm not blaming you in particular, let me be clear about this. This is a long-term problem, but it's, the question is, does the district have significant fiscal problems? Now, we've got a write-off schedule that's already telling us we're short $3 million on the money that we said that we have. Well, we apparently don't have that money. We're saying that money is a fantasy. So, in fact, are these correct? My question is, are the answers that we've got on items 6 and 7 correct, where it says we didn't have any significant events and we don't have any fiscal problems?
The debt that we have now is pre-existing debt. This debt didn't happen over the last 6 months. This debt didn't happen over the last 9 months. This is pre-existing debt that has occurred since 2008, I believe, Director Ying. Yeah, this debt has occurred over some time. So what you see now is a true up of your budget. And you're getting to a point where you have a true budget in front of you because we are solving your outstanding issues.
And so the item
And
says,
with
did
that,
the district have significant events for the quarter, including settlement of audit findings? It seems to me that this is a settlement of an audit finding of a significant magnitude.
so, yeah, and I certainly am trying to answer your question. So that's where on the 28th, when we come together, we have areas of opportunities of where we can build the fund balance back up again, but it will definitely take unity and it will take everyone working together to agree that that's what we want to do. So this is still a team effort, and we can still achieve our minimum goal of making sure that we have the fund balance in place intact the way we need to. But it is going to take some work, and it will take all of us working together and using our best minds and best efforts to build that fund balance again.
Chancellor, I'm still not, I haven't gotten a yes and no on items 6 and 7. Does the settlement of the audit findings here constitute a significant event for the quarter? A write-off of $5 million?
David, did it happen for this quarter, or what did it happen for prior quarters?
For accounting purposes, technically, it occurred in the fourth quarter of 16-17.
And so would we want to go back and amend our statement at that time?
That's certainly something we can consider. We'll check with the system office to see.
And given the $3 million of additional money we plan to write off, which would, I believe, reduce our reserves below 5%, does the district have significant fiscal problems that must be addressed?
Yeah, well, one thing is that when this money is money that's owed to the district, until we write it off, it still is district money. It's debt that is owed the district. Until such a time as we write it off, it's still part of our budget.
Thank you for your presentation. I'll have all trustees come back up to the dais, please.
We probably should leave first.
And as we gather ourselves, we have 7.5, which is an action item, that we have a motion to approve. We have a second. Can we restate who the motion to approve came from, please, just to be sure?
She wants to.
Just restating the motion. We had a motion to approve, we had a second. And then we had another motion to move the item back into public comment. That was approved, carried forward. Now we're back on the motion to approve 7.5. But while you look at that, and I think that's where we're at, I believe we still have one more comment. Trustee Weinstein?
Thank you. I'm just, I'm curious, if we don't approve the first quarter, what's the consequences of that? Are there consequences?
Yes, there are consequences. Is there someone who would like to address the consequences? Oh, in other words, we don't have an option.
As I understand it, if we don't submit the budget to the county office, to the state chancellor's office, then that triggers a process with respect to the district's ability to continue without intervention.
Madam President,
Trustee Withrow?
just without going into a whole lot of details on history, but the state chancellor's office invoked this report specifically on Peralta. It's not on all of it. There's some other districts that have it, but it's not across the board. But it's on Peralta because of a concern over financial management going back into the 2005, 6, 7, 8 timeframe. And I think that it's absolutely mandatory that we send it in.
Thank you for that. If there are no further comments, we will take a vote, and we will take, Brenda Martinez will actually take the vote for each trustee.
Okay. Trustee Weinstein?
I say with reserve, yes.
Trustee Handy? Trustee Brown?
Yes, with the understanding that we will work in a participatory governance manner on the 28th to resolve the issues that we've discussed tonight.
Trustee Withrow?
Yes.
Trustee Gonzalez Yuan? Trustee Riley? And Trustee Bonilla?
That is a yes, echoing our resolve to move forward and resolve some of these clarifying issues that need to take place with the budget.
Thank you. Motion passes.
We are on 4.1, update and design of the floor plan for Milvia Street property for BCC.
You're becoming an expert. What is that?
How about now? Okay. Board of Trustees, thank you so much for having us present to you this evening. This is a report coming to you from your Capital Projects Group. And my name is Interim Director Kelly Lynch McMahon, and we are going to be sharing with you an update of the progress that's been made on our very positive and moving forward capital projects program with Berkeley City College. This is Meredith Marshak of Nolan Tam Architects, who is our designer, and they have prepared a very short, succinct presentation for you to understand exactly the steps that have been going on over the past year to bring us up to the point where we are at now, that you have some information to actually know what is going to happen with the new property that we've acquired. Meredith?
Thank you very much, Kelly. Can everybody hear me? I'm not good with microphones. So I hope most of you know this building. It's just kitty corner across the street, and the district had the opportunity to purchase this building and to create the bones of a multi-building campus by doing so. So we're very excited to be participating in that. The building, if you don't know it, is on the southeast corner of Milvia and Center Street. And it's, let's see, I'm going to go that way. So on this slide, you see the building at 2118 Milvia, and 2050 is the building that is that we're currently sitting in. You can see that it's a much smaller building. It's approximately 25,000 square feet, which means that it's about the size of one floor of this building, but it's got adequate space to provide some good-sized classrooms, and that was our mandate, to create a building that had attractive activities in it, a full complement of activities in it, and to provide a large number of larger classrooms, which are something that's sorely needed at this campus. So it's a building that was built in 1966. We're going through a process with a division of the state architect to come up with a package of seismic, access, and fire and life safety improvements that will include a new fire sprinkler system for this building, new fire alarm, new roof, replacing all the windows, plus seismic retrofit for the building. So it will be a very, very solid building when we're done. And I think with a little love on the outside in terms of color, we can make it an attractive asset to the campus. The front door is sort of right behind that white SUV. There are 3 points of entry to the building, but we're going to have one main entrance and the other 2 will be exit only. The building will focus on extending the idea that you currently have of having your learning resource center where it's visible to the street. So a large part of the ground floor will be given to functions where learning will be visible, and I think that's a really exciting thing to do. So again, 7 general classrooms, a number of activity areas, including the wellness center, the bookstore, some faculty offices, administration, and with some open unassigned space still to be determined as we move through the process. And we're currently working with DSA, as I mentioned, to make this building safe as well as welcoming. All of the mechanical and electrical systems will be replaced inside the building, so it will be much more energy efficient than it currently is. So this is the main floor. You'll see 3 large classrooms. These are currently shown with sort of a conventional layout, but these rooms are large enough that they can have tables, they can have flexible layouts. On the southeast corner of the building, the lounge study area is again going to be an open collaborative space. The bookstore will be here with frontage on Center Street, which we think is a really exciting add to the building. So people can pick up a cup of coffee and work collaboratively in the lounge study area. Also on the ground floor is the health center and some meeting space and security at the front gate with your student ambassadors positioned at the front entrance. On the second floor, 4 large classrooms. Again, these are quite large compared to the classrooms in this building. I think the smallest of these is 860 square feet, so these are pretty good size. learning cohort space up there in the southwest corner of the building, some offices, mental wellness, open collaborative studies, and administration area. And then the third floor is a partial floor, which isn't so obvious from the outside of the building. It's somewhat less than half the floor area of the lower areas. And here we're planning to have faculty offices in an open arrangement, break and work area for faculty, and some open program space that currently is not specifically defined in terms of use. As we're working our way through the first round of DSA comments, these are the project costs, $6 million for acquisition of the property, the land and the building, $18 million assumed for the retrofit and remodel, which would include the complete build out of the interior, including new furniture for the building, with a $24 million total project cost. And for some reason, those numbers are in there twice, so I apologize for that. And this is just a conceptual view. This is a view from the inside of that second floor open collaborative learning space with, you know, generous writing surfaces and flexible furniture. And we think that this will be a very attractive addition to the Berkeley City College campus. So that's our little presentation. And do we have time for a few comments? Energy for comments?
Do you guys have any questions? Yes, Trustee Gonzalez, yeah.
Thank you. Just real quickly, you know, the original project costs for this building, I think were done by GAO Associates back in 2014. We vetted this 16 different ways. So, you know, I thought the board was well informed on it. But those project costs came in about $16 million. I know that they didn't pay attention to the windows apparently, and so that's a big cost. What are the other things that are driving that $8 million delta?
Well, first thing, it's escalation. And of course, the Bay Area marketplace that we're in right now is one that we've never seen before. New construction costs on retrofits, structural retrofits for building this size are running about $725 a square foot. We used our estimate of just $500 a square foot when I came in August just to refresh the budget to see where we were. And at that time also, we had identified additional structural elements and building system components that needed to be updated and modified. So with those changes, that's where you have your escalated cost and increased budget. And so we are working very diligently with the college to determine, you know, what is your wish list, what is your must-have, and what do we have to do for compliance? Because, you know, as I said to the president when I first met with her, I want you guys to be happy and I want us to live within our means, but the first and foremost priority is what do we need to do to be operational, and that's where we start from. And so with that, that's where we then added on all these other things that are compliance-related issues that are required for us to actually do for us to maintain occupancy and use of the facility.
So of that $8 million delta, about how much of that was accelerated labor costs?
Accelerated labor makes up about 2.5%. And then the actual escalation on your materials is around 17 to 20%. We're working on our costs right now, so I don't really want to tell you definitively, yes, this is what it's going to be, but we will have a very robust report for you for the 28th for us to really look at those numbers and understand where the true costs are coming from.
And at this point, are we on schedule for kind of moving forward with the...
We are absolutely on our original schedule.
So I just wanted to also add that not only are we on schedule, but we've been actively working with Kelly's team and then Meredith Nolentam and doing all of the design review with all of the user groups. So we're continuing to follow our process of collaboratively working with all of the potential programs and users that will be occupying the space.
Are there any other questions? Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's now on. Yes, we.
Right, so it is another presentation.
Yeah, we do. So I'd like to introduce my colleagues from the Management Leadership Academy at Peralta. That's the group that you've heard about them, and so they're going to give you some brief synopsis of some of the plans and projects that they are working on. So I don't know who's going to start first. Victor, it looks like. Oh, Gail wants to start. That's her house.
And safe. Thank you. All right. What's the name? Is there one? Which presentation? Oh, it's Yuji Gale. MDAP, is that right? Yeah.
Yes.
Okie dokie. And that and bit.
Hello, good evening. My name is Samantha Kessler. I'm the Research and Planning Officer at Merritt College. So thank you for giving us some time on your agenda and staying awake to hear our presentations. I am here with my friend and colleague Gail to represent the PAGE project, which is Professionals Achieving Growth and Excellence. We're really continuing some of the work from last year's Day Zero groups and my Peralta Journey groups. And Gail and I and the members who couldn't be here tonight really united around the common interest in really being successful here at Peralta and thriving in our roles, and also taking advantage of professional development and improving professional development for us and for all our colleagues. So the goals of our project, and I'm sorry that you can't see the bottom line, but the goals that we kind of set out to achieve. Our goals were really to encourage professional learning activities for all Peralta employees and support their success in their positions, improve and increase attendance of professional learning opportunities at Peralta and especially at our flex days, and propose strategies and a plan for district-wide professional development coordination. Oh no. It's okay. I'll keep going. It's okay. So just really briefly, we took some areas of focus within those goals, and that is to take on the new employee orientation, and we'll be starting that in January. Work on our flex day systems of tracking participation and also systematically evaluating and using data to improve our flex days. Developing trainings that our employees need to be successful, such as trainings on their systems, our processes, and our tools, and also increasing opportunities and improving opportunities for our classified staff, especially the classified at the district who aren't always in the loop of opportunities at the campuses and are certainly welcome to attend those.
Gail Pendleton, the BCC Assessment Coordinator here. Sorry, our slide is not working. But some of our accomplishments was the August 2017 prompt training for new employees. We had approximately 15 people in attendance, which was still very good. Another accomplishment was our electronic sign-in that went over very well for the August and the October Flex Day at the district and at the campuses. Thirdly, we had a survey that went out as of yesterday for all of our classified, confidential, and local 1021 and 39 employees to solicit ideas about their needs and of activities that they want to see at the classified professional development. And we're going to be doing, as Samantha said, our new employee handoff for January, and we're excited about doing that. Oh, thank you. We also did a little data from the other flex days, and as you see, we had, you probably can't see the bottom, but as far as the flex day attendance by employees of classification, we had 36 administrators, 59 classified staff, part-time faculty was 60. We had 145 of our full-time faculty, 3 students, and 6 others. And then if it was broken down by the colleges, as you know, Laney is our biggest. They had the 48%. We had at Merritt, it was 10%. Berkeley had 10% attendance. College of Alameda had 14%, and the district overall had 12% in attendance. How do I do this? Page team members who contributed to this wonderful event for all of our accomplishments are Gary, Myra, Chungwai, Jason, Samantha, Gail, Ranjit, and Jamil. Thank you for our presentation.
Yes. Okay. It's coming.
Here.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Littles from Merritt College, Academic Pathways. Yes, it is. We are doing a project called the Peralta Summer Institute 2018. This will be the second year that this program, that we did this program. It started off at Laney College, where they recruited 250 students to embark on these pathway programs. Working with me is Michael from Laney College. We have Doris from Merritt. We have Andrea from Laney, myself, and we have Cynthia from Laney College also. So Peralta Summer Institute, the PSI, our goal is to advance students' access, equity, social justice, awareness, academic success through innovation, CTE, and arts-based classes. We're going to provide this experience through the Peralta Summer Institute by serving approximately 500 Bay Area, mainly Oakland, Unified students. The background of this program, it started, like I said, at Laney, and we plan to expand onto 2017 summer program, which is going to change the lives of about 150 students. That's our goal, is to incorporate 150 students into this summer's program. Research has shown that students who are exposed to college classes while in high school have a higher level of academic success and career aspirations. We're going to introduce high school students to careers through pathways, through CTE programs, and the arts. It's a collaboration effort among all 4 of Peralta colleges. Our goal is, our outcomes, to increase the district enrollment. We're going to strengthen our community and industry partnership, CBOs. Here are some of the classes that they're going to be offered for this program of the summer. At Alameda College, we're going to do students are going to be taking the classes in the Atlas programs, Pills and Design and Merchandising, Digital Assistance. At Berkeley City College, Digital Media and Communication, Biotechnology. Merritt College, Healthcare and Bioscience, Cybersecurity and Child Development. Laney College, Building and Construction, Performing Arts, Dance and Culinary Arts. Okay, and I think that's it. That's our 2 minutes. Thank you very much.
I want to make a correction, though. Sorry.
That's okay.
The 150 students were actually, they participated in the Laney Summer Institute of 2017. We are aiming for 500 students in 2018, at least approximately 500 students. So it's for the 4 colleges. And that's why the curriculum is a combination of examples of CTE and arts classes from the 4 colleges.
stand by for just one quick minute while we queue up our video. A little video here to show you. Oh.
So what is the first thing that comes to mind when you think of Peralta email? Ooh. Pain, suffering, and
It's a busy highway.
First thing I think of with Peralta email is clutter, too much information, and efficiency.
And how rude some of the comments are in the reply all.
We have a lot of too many emails in our inbox that we can't get to every day.
How many unread messages are in your Peralta inbox right now?
I would say 10.
A lot, but sometimes I just delete it because it's not really connected with me. You might,
Oh gosh, a lot. Over 25.
Or about
Really?
Unread?
Yeah.
Couple thousand? Yeah.
Maybe 150, 200.
How does that make you feel?
All right. Well, we trust that most of you find some recognition in those faces, as well as the issue at hand. Building from the work of the district office ACE campaign, the vision of the Peralta Norms group is to identify and to implement the most effective ways to communicate electronically within the Peralta Community College district, with the intent to assist all colleges and the district office in fulfilling our respective vision and missions. We acknowledge the complexity and diversity among Peralta colleges and the value in the numerous perspectives that we share and hold. However, the case of pressing that infamous send button without insight into the consequence of mass emailing congests our ability to effectively and respectfully communicate with one another. As such, the 2017-18 first norms phase will specifically focus on the immediate issues with respect to email protocols and best practices. Our first goal is to integrate Peralta norms into our onboarding efforts for new employees. We then endeavor to win over our seasoned Peralta employees with activities like Flex Day workshops and to make use of our state-of-the-art Canvas platform for online teach-ins. The Peralta Norms team is comprised of me. I'm Roberto Gonzalez from Berkeley City College on staff. Courtney Brown, instructor at Merit. Anna Cortesio, instructor at Laney. Danielle Autumn, Laney counselor. Royal L. Roberts, district office. And last but not least is Tomas Torres Gil, district office and BCC. So thank you very much and stay tuned.
Yeah, what you saw is really these participants have chosen a project that would transform Peralta, and so the first one, or one of them, that talks about the summer institute is that we have summer institutes going on all over the district. However, they are not all coordinated, and their efforts is to make sure that it is a Peralta focus, which is well coordinated among all of the colleges.
I have walked around so much, I just got my 10,000 steps. Incredible.
Madam President, I note the time is 20 past 10. I move that we extend the meeting until 11:15, given the number of items we have.
Well, that doesn't sound very pleasing to me, but do I have a second?
Second.
Do we need an individual vote on this? I vote no. Anyone else?
We should need a roll call.
Well, I'm open to an amendment.
I'd like to take chair's privilege and, if you don't mind, Trustee Gonzalez-Wynn, I would like to table the rest of this agenda and bring it back at another date and time.
Do you need, is that a motion?
That's a motion.
I will second the motion.
Discussion?
We can have discussion.
Madam President.
Can I ask is there anything on tonight that's urgent, that has to be done tonight?
Chancellor?
We do have several items that are fairly urgent. We have, I think, the warrant, is that, no, the short-term employees that we need to approve on the consent agenda, as well as our IT PeopleSoft item that's also urgent, and I'm sure a few others.
Understood. My motion still holds. I am recommending, and I'll restate my motion, to table this agenda for a future meeting, and perhaps we will do a much better time at pulling our agenda together and ensuring that we are prioritizing our items and our meeting. I have a second, and I will take a vote.
Can we have some discussion?
Sure. Trustee Gonzalez, Trustee Riley, and Trustee Gonzalez-Wynn.
Thank you. I support your motion, Madam Chair, but if I could add the approval of the items for short-term employees, that are not, to make sure that they receive their pay warrants.
Madam President, we have a number of items on the consent calendar that remain on the consent calendar. They weren't moved to action. And I would like to move a substitute motion that we approve the consent calendar.
I'll second that.
If we can do that, then we can deal with the other stuff.
I will accept the friendly amendment, and we have a second.
I'll call question.
And can we identify what items remain on the consent calendar, just so we're really clear on this? I know there's a lot in the action, but it'd be good to know what we're all voting on, if we could, please.
We'll get a readout.
Madam President, if I could, I pulled a number of the items so that if the board clerk would cancel all of those.
Wait. We have way too much going on right now, so let's pull this back. Go ahead and read what's left on consent.
The ones I did.
But they're yours,
Madam President, just give me about 20 seconds to figure out the action items and the remaining consent items. Madam President, remaining items on the consent calendar are 5.4, consider ratification of out-of-state travel pursuant to Board Policy 7400. 5.6, consider approval of a retainer agreement for Garcia Hernandez Sani LLP to provide acting general counsel services for 2016 through 2018. 6.1, consider approval of course and program additions, deactivations, and changes. 6.2, consider approval to accept the zero textbook cost grant in the amount of $150,000. 6.3, consider approval of independent consultant agreement addendum for Idea Builders Labs. 6.4, consider approval of a subcontractor services agreement between California Relief and Merritt College. 6.5, consider approval of an ICC with SHM Communications in the amount of $50,000. 7.1, consider approval of change order number 6 for W.E. Lyons on the Best Center project at Laney College. 7.3, consider ratification of the warrant and payment report. 7.4, review of purchase order report. 7.7. 7.7, consider approval of change order number 7 to W.E. Lyons on the Best Center project at Laney College. 9.1, consider approval of a contracted services agreement with Rain Associates. 9.2. 9.2, consider approval of change order number 1 on the Laney College door upgrades. 9.3, consider approval of a professional services agreement with EMC Research for community polling and survey consulting services. 9.5, consider approval of an agreement with Konya Elevator for Laney Elevator and College of Alameda Elevator Design. 9.8, excuse me, 10. 10.2, consider approval of an addendum to the ICC for Tim Gibbon in the amount of $35,000. That concludes all the consent items.
Thank you. So we have a motion to approve all of the items, remaining items that you just mentioned on consent, and I believe we have a second.
Actually, there's one more.
One more.
10.3, consider approval of an ICC in the amount of $54,000 for TCOM to provide smart classroom design documents.
Thank you. So we have a motion to approve, and we have a second. Can you go ahead and take the vote on that? Thank you. We're motioning to table the remainder of the board meeting, and this was an amendment to pass.
So the motion is to table all of the action items of the board meeting and
And only approve the consent items.
Madam President, could I propose an additional amendment to this? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items that I pulled that trustee Ewan did not. 5.3, 7.6, 8.2, 11.3, and 8.1. And I'd like to add those to the category that, to be approved tonight.
Can you repeat those, Trustee Withrow?
Pardon?
Can you repeat those items?
5.3, 7.6, 8.2, 11.3, and 8.1.
I would accept that as a friendly amendment to my amendment.
We've got a second on that.
As long as you're keeping track of the items. Let me know when you're ready. We'll add it to the motion.
Wait, 11.3?
And 11.3. Can you read those back?
5.3, 7.6, 8.2, 11.3, and 8.1.
We'll take all except for 11.3.
Oh, but what, 11.3?
Yeah, 11.3, we're going to leave it off the table.
That's a fire issue. Chancellor, what's that going to do if,
It's
that's the
not-
fire risk at Merit?
Is it an emergency item? Does it need to go through tonight?
May I answer that?
I would say that's an emergency. They need to have the place burned down.
Might I answer that, trustees? It is actually an issue that we do need to address immediately. We are going to be assessed fines on a daily basis if we do not do mitigation efforts within the next 7 days.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. That's part of the discussion, the reason I pulled it. We don't come under the city of Oakland, but neither here nor there. We need to get the fire hazard taken care of.
It's not the city. It's actually.
Can I go ahead and have Trustee Brown, who's in the queue?
We've made a concerted effort to have routine maintenance as opposed to emergency declarations, and timing the weed abatement is part of routine maintenance. And our question and the discussion that we were going to have is how weed abatement, which is something that has to be done on a regular calendar, would become an emergency. And that would require some feedback. So I'm not questioning whether or not fire abatement is a necessity. I am questioning the prudence of continuing to permit there to be things put on the agenda as emergency items that have the capacity to be calendared in a timely manner. It's a lack of it's an unwillingness to continue the practice. And we have approved these similar things in the past, and they continue to show up on the agenda. And the way that we stop that from happening is to not approve the item and require it to be calendared appropriately. And that's the discussion that I think we need to have. And it's, of course, not the fault of the president. I'm not suggesting that. What I'm asking is why the calendar is not made such that these items are handled in the regular course of business.
Might I answer that question? Is this the appropriate time to?
Well, I think we've had enough debate. What we're trying to do here is move through this calendar, and there's been quite a bit, I think, between myself and Trustee and Vice Chancellor, President Trustee, have agreed to table a number of items that weren't pertinent to be moved tonight. 11.3 remains off of the calendar and moved to be tabled. So can you read back your last few items that were added from Trustee Withrow?
So the remaining items that were added are 5.3, 7.6, 8.2, and 8.1.
Thank you. So that's the motion that we then have. Do we need to restate the motion, or are we fine? We're fine with the motion, we can take the vote. Thank you for that.
I just want to be clear, is 11.3 on it or not on it?
No.
Not.
Can we have a separate vote on that?
We can go, let's go ahead and take the vote on this.
We'll have a roll call for this. Trustee Weinstein?
So I support 11.3, meaning.
Right, so you can,
Okay, no.
Trustee Handy? I can repeat it. So the motion is to approve all of the consent items with the addition of the 4 items mentioned, which are 5.3, 7.6, 8.1, and 8.2. That is not including 11.3.
right.
And point of clarification, it strikes me the way that the motion is framed right now is that it's a two-part motion. One is the approval of the consent calendar, and the second part of it is to table the balance of the agenda.
Yes.
And so it's an all or nothing right now.
Right.
All right, thank you.
Point of clarification, not to be technical about it, but I think under Robert's rules, to table something means you're going to table it given the time frame. So what we're voting on is removing the rest of the items.
We're removing, okay.
Moving it to a future board meeting.
We have to say, if we're going to table, it's going to be date, time certain.
Not tabling. Tabling means you're going to table it until a later part of the meeting. We're saying we're not going to address it tonight, we're going to address it at a future time.
At a future meeting.
Which means we're removing it from the agenda. And that's what the voting is.
Okay.
Because that requires nothing more than a item by item.
Can I continue with the roll call?
Yes.
Trustee Withrow?
Yes.
Trustee Gonzalez Yuan? Trustee Riley?
Yes.
Trustee Brown?
And that's yes to table the remaining items other than those that are on the consent calendar. Yes.
Trustee Bonilla?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Move approval of the consent calendar and the items that were added to the consent calendar by Trustee Withrow.
Second.
We have an approval and, a motion and a second. We need a vote.
Can you repeat the motion, please?
Move approval of the consent calendar and the several items that Trustee Withrow added to the consent calendar, re-added to the consent calendar that had been moved from consent.
No, we've already done that.
I know.
Roll call. Trustee Weinstein?
Exactly, I'm not sure what I'm okaying. Is it the whole thing? It's
Consent
the
calendar.
calendar, and it's including the safety issue of.
No.
Oh, it's not? Which was not on consent. Which was not on consent.
It was an action item.
All right.
Trustee Handy?
Yes.
Trustee Withrow?
Yes.
Trustee Gonzalez Yuan. Trustee Riley. Trustee Brown.
Yes.
Trustee Bonilla.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Okay. So we will move to adjourn, but hold on, we definitely need to let, did you need to say something? No? Right.
Something happens on that hill, it's gonna affect, the community is really enormous about it. And I'm gonna be honest with you, it'll affect Vermont. They
Right.
will. Something happens before we fix it.
We understand. We also, I'm hoping that you heard clearly and that the chancellor here heard clearly that submitting agenda items under emergency, policy or procedures is just not acceptable, especially for routine maintenance items that should come under the regular itemized and appropriate into the agenda. And right now, that's not what we're receiving. So, thank you. I move to adjourn. Oh, announcements, sorry.
The next regular board meeting will be held on December 12th in the district boardroom. The board wishes all a happy Thanksgiving holiday. As a reminder, Peralta will be closed on Thursday, November 23rd, and Friday, November 24th, in observance. Thank you to the BCC staff for all of your help and your hosting of our board meeting. Madam President, that concludes the announcements for this evening.
Thank you. This meeting's adjourned.